Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Fanfiction podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Today, we're diving into a brand new story. Dammachi 6, The Renard Bunny Part 4, by Nuri_Kairos_Arcadia. Before we jump in, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Everyone after poor Belle. Artoria made her way back to the VIP room where she saw the Miss and Merlin, holding Arthur back from slaying an apologetic god. She sighed and walked towards him, with a shake of her head intending to stop his rampaging. Her attention, however, was completely stolen away as her eyes found the white manner of the Renard. Her heart fluttered as she watched the smile on his face brighten. Arthur had called out to her once he noticed that she had returned. His calls went unanswered, though, and he eventually noticed how her eyes were fixed on Belle. A slight blush adorned her face, so light that it could be easily missed while her hand grasped her heart. Guess I don't even have to convince her. This will be easier than I thought. With a knowing smile, he placed his hand on her shoulder, finally getting her attention. Lost in thought about a white-haired boy. I don't know. Just curious for now. Well, you should think about it. If I didn't know you any better, I'd have thought he already stole your heart. Artoria looked at her brother with a questioning gaze, almost doubting him. You, the person that would raise his sword against any and all who tried to ask for my hand in marriage. Arthur winced hearing that. Okay, well, I suppose that is true enough. But I've been talking to Belle, and he is interesting fellow. He's kind and compassionate, a heart of gold filled with justice and purity. You don't come across these kinds of people often, and certainly not a fluffy being like Belle. Her gaze didn't waver, causing Arthur to sigh in defeat. He has a heart that values life but is not as naive as to believe that all life can be spared. He's close to your age as well. Well, there is a 2 years difference, but it is closer to you than any of the other suitors you've had. Her eyes looked at him as if asking, are you serious? But she also knew her brother meant well. She also did have an interest in the boy. Look, Artoria, I want you to be happy and free of all those suitors. What better way than to find a man that you actually love? Also, you're at the peak of your life. Enjoy the romance you could have. He has multiple girlfriends. He does, which he loves with all of his heart. I'm sure you're not one to mind that. And, though Belle does have many wives, that doesn't make him a bad person. Artoria, a tall, handsome man with platinum blonde hair and amber eyes, stood next to Arthur, followed by a healthy yet old man with gray hair and beard who joined the king's other side. Themisama, Merlin. What I believe your brother is trying to say is to go and try to talk to him. As you get to know him, you'll see that he is quite the adorable fellow to speak to, and as he said, he is a very gentle soul. Merlin nodded, agreeing with the wise god. I'm sure you'll find more about him if you speak to him, perhaps get him alone to be more intimate. Besides, he is a Renard, and I don't know if it matters to you, but he is very handsome and fluffy. Her eyes found Belle again before returning to the god and the mage. That he is. But if I want to get him alone, shouldn't I speak to the girls over there? This time it was Arthur once again to answer her. That you should, but I believe they'll be happy to have you in his harem, or polygamy, which ever one it becomes. They will. Yes, love does bring unexpected changes. Like you becoming weird. Like that time you danced that ridiculous dance for Guinevere. Arthur felt like hiding his head in the ground, but simply coughed into his hand. We don't speak about that, Artoria. We don't, just don't. But yes, I guess that is my point. Seeing the encouraging looks in Merlin, the Miss, and Arthur, as well as the fluttering of her heart whenever she saw his smile, she knew she'd have to try at least. Though, there was one person who didn't seem to agree. It wasn't Lancelot who proposed to her once, nor was it Guinevere. Instead, it was Mordred, who didn't like the idea of her master marrying a stranger. A kind and handsome stranger. That was always the biggest trap, before the pure man revealed himself as a terrifying and horrible man. At least that is what she thought and told the others. Lancelot rolled his eyes at her delusional fantasies, not wanting to deal with Mordred's rants. Mordred cut it out. We've seen him up close and even spoke to him. There were many gods. As well, he couldn't lie about anything. But It is Artoria's choice and hers alone unless you are rejecting the idea because you are jealous. That Belle will steal Artoria, or perhaps that Artoria is going to steal his attention. From you. Maybe both. You seemed pretty invested when talking to him. When Lancelot teased her, Mordred's face turned as red as her current outfit. Why you? What are you insinuating? Nothing. Lancelot, Mordred. Enough. The single command from Artoria was instantly received by the two as they stopped speaking. I will do as my brother suggested and speak to him. I will decide then. Hee, Belle, you're so cute. Kagaya sat on Belle's right side as she poked the cheek of a blushing Renard while Tsubaki on the other side was playing with a lock of his long hair. Elise, who was behind the Renard, noticed Artoria walking towards them. Not wanting to ruin the moment of those three, she left the Renard to the two newer girlfriends and walked up to the princess. Can I help you, Princess Artoria? I wanted to ask you if I could talk to Belle. Oh, that's no problem. Alone if possible. Artoria was too preoccupied looking at Belle to notice the glint in Elise's eyes. Oh, a future member. And a princess no less. Way to go, Belle. Just ask Belle about that. With a nod she resumed walking towards Belle while Elise smiled. She reminds me of the sword princess. How do I deal with such a stoic person? Maybe. I'll just let Belle work his charms on her. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Alright, Belle, get ready and make me proud, for Sword Princess 2.0 is coming. With a mad grin she tailed Artoria, excited to see how this would play out. Meanwhile, Kagaya and Tsubaki were having the time of their life teasing Belle when Artoria coughed in her hand, announcing her presence. Kagaya and Tsubaki immediately noticed Elise standing behind, signaling them to come over. Understanding what she was trying to do, the two reluctantly parted, though not before kissing him. Thank you. Belle was grateful to whoever his benefactor was, as they had just ceased the teasing. When he looked up, however, the princess was definitely not the person he was expecting to see. It certainly didn't help that she maintained a stoic appearance as she looked down at him. Artoria-sama. How can I help you? Just Artoria, Belle. I would like to speak to you. Sure. Privately, if that's not a problem. Alright. Belle took a moment to register the request before nodding. With the first step done, Artoria led him away to a more secluded area. There she made sure that they were alone as she turned and silently looked at him, losing herself in his rubellite eyes. Belle stared back as an awkward silence suffused the corridor they stood in. Artoria-san. Realizing she was just staring at him, made a light blush sprout on her face as she immediately looked away. The awkwardness was a foreign feeling for the princess, never having this much problem speaking or looking someone in the eyes. She was certain that the stutter wasn't helping, but she couldn't fight it no matter how hard she tried. Sorry. I didn't mean to stare. Fut, hee. Hearing his chuckle, she looked back at him, but was surprised by the bright smile he gave her, his canines showing as he began giggling, his own tail trying to hide the mirth of his laughter as it wiggled around, that he couldn't hold back. An endearing scene that made her heart throb. What is this feeling? She felt an urge to hug him there, but that would be weird, so she suppressed it. Sorry, hee. I always thought you were a serious and frankly scary person. But that reaction was cute. It's just that seeing you like that made me realize that your personality is just as beautiful as your appearance, despite how you act normally. She definitely felt her eyes widening slightly and the blush deepening to a visible level. The Renard was sweet, just as he was sly with his words. Each one was like a hammer that broke the walls around her heart. Like water, it seeped through the cracks of her defense, tearing it apart. But she had to concentrate. With a shake of her head and a slap to her cheeks, she focused on something that had her mind thinking about the way he reacted, how he worried about her, and in a way, protected her from that vile Viking. So she vocalized her thoughts, which made Belle blush. It was showing on my face. I was glaring. Well, because you're a woman. Just because of that. And Grandpa always said that no woman should be slandered like that or treated like objects. They need to be cherished and treated like an equal. He didn't seem to be doing that. That and as a hero I wish to protect people and make them smile. To give them freedom and for them to not regret their choices. But, on a more personal level, the reason I feel like I wanted to protect you and be there for you is because when I saw you I saw a loneliness that felt hard to bear. An emptiness that, despite the care and love of her brother and God, she sought something more. Perhaps a hole in your heart. Though selfish, I couldn't keep seeing it and wanted to do something. Help you find the person that would fill that emptiness and cure your loneliness. I mean, that is just my thought. Sorry, that was too brash, wasn't it? I dash. Bell stopped as he felt the blonde head lean into his chest. He couldn't see her face, thus her expression, but he felt the smile. Thank you, Bell. No one seemed to have noticed before, or maybe they did but did nothing. Perhaps they couldn't. So your words mean the world to me. It might be weird for you. We've only just met, so I'm sorry if I'm being too forwards with you. But let me say this. Thank you. This scene was awfully familiar. A girl he had met for less than an hour was being intimate with him, yet it felt not weird or perverted to him. Just like Elise, but with a character that was more like AIS, or at least what he heard from others about AIS. Don't worry. I promise to help you find that person. Artoria, however, shook her head and leaned back so that she was face to face with the Renard. You already did. I did. Yes, that's you. Will you be that person, Belle? That person who will cure me of my loneliness and grant me the love I seek. Elise, followed by Tsubaki and Kagaya, went after the princess, leading away there. Renard. They stopped after seeing them turn into a corridor and waited a minute before peeking around the corner. Their eyes widened in surprise as Artoria was leaning her head on the fluffy being's chest before looking up and asking Belle to be her lover. What? Tsubaki recoiled back, not expecting the confession from the stoic princess. Oh my. Kagaya was for once genuinely surprised. Fufu, that was quicker than I thought. While Elise simply giggled as her plans were moving faster than she had anticipated. Now all that was left was for Belle to give an answer. And knowing Belle, he would probably hesitate. That's. I know you already have 3 girlfriends and this is selfish, but I can only ask you. I have to ask your one and only beautiful Elise. No worries, for she is here. The two were startled when Elise suddenly made her appearance, followed by 2 palming women, ashamed that she would just jump into the moment like that. Elise. That's right, and I'm here to give my approval. And I'm sure these 2 have no problem. As long as they are trustworthy girls, I have no problem with it. What about you, Tsubaki? I am happy enough with being allowed to be one of his girlfriends. If it wasn't for Elise, I wouldn't get to enjoy my time with Belle, so as long as she and Belle both approve, I won't say no. See, besides, there are many more to join. Little white-haired, blue-eyed Renard is next. Anyways, hearing that, the emerald eyes of Artoria stared at Belle, who slowly turned back to the princess. He wasn't quite sure who she was referring to in the heat of the moment. But he'd leave that for later. He had more pressing issues right now. The wide eyes and the almost desperately begging expression on her face made it hard for Belle to refuse. She was relying on him, and it's not like he had reason to deny her. She was beautiful, had her own cute sides, and he genuinely wanted to help her and be there for her. It's just hard to be asked out so suddenly, though that is exactly what happened with Elise. And it turned out magnificently, if he says so himself. All right. I will do my best, Artoria. After hesitating for a moment, a bright smile bloomed on his face that made Artoria dive back into his chest. Her hands went around and tightly embraced him. It would take her a while to get used to the warmth of his body, but she looked forwards to it. Thank you, Belle. When the 5 came back, Artoria didn't hold Belle's hand, nor did she lean on him. But the smile and the way her eyes only looked at Belle made Arthur grin. Perhaps the talk had been even more successful than he'd have thought. Looking to his right, he could see Mordred frown, but she clearly had no intention of interfering. To his left, he spotted Lancelot and simply felt bad as he was rejected in the past by Artoria, a defeated sigh escaping his lips as the Night watched her genuinely smile for the first time. It seems your child has picked up another girl from my familiar this time. Take Mikazuchi. That he did, the miss. I promise you she will be happy with Belle. I know she will, don't worry. Just tell him that Arthur here isn't ready to be in. Uncle Nor is. He ready to be a father. Isn't Mordred his daughter? Nope. She is his cousin. Oh, I see. Wait, isn't he 30? 26. I know, he's old. Hey, I heard that the miss. The blonde king made his way to the god of order. Then stop dilly-dallying. I want to see my grandchildren already. I mean, look at Guinevere. You know she wants to. The woman in question blushed but shyly nodded. Enough about this. We can discuss it at another time. The god chuckled before looking at Takemikazuchi. What are you going to do? I was hoping to have him join my familia to celebrate the victory. The two turned to Amaterasu, who showed up next to Belle along with Baphomet. Baphomet here has decided to tag along. Of course, Astrea, Loki and Ganesha. Familia are also invited. Since Artoria won, why not join us for the celebrations? Artoria probably thinks nothing of this triumph, but I'm sure she'll be happy to use any excuse to have some time with Belle. Ara, another girl who fell to his charms. So it would seem. Well, we'll gladly join you, right, Arthur? Of course. Mia and her staff, that Belle had completely forgotten about, generously offered to open the pub just for them, allowing them to celebrate, though at the cost of Belle having to wear the butler uniform and help out the girls to serve the large group of people. Elise had her fun smacking his, but while Tsubaki, Artoria, and Kagaya simply enjoyed the service and the sight of the Renard in a suit. The most interesting part, however, came later. During the celebration when a couple of Renards got drunk. Mao Bell pay attention to my Shu Shinanyo, his talkin' to my bad Akajiyun his mine. He. Bell I want you to look on the shat. Mayun Tilda. Shinano's 9 tails wrapped around his leg as he was trying to serve Akaja's order, who was busy flirting with him, poking fun at Shinano to get her jealous. The others, most of whom had never seen a 9-tailed fox despite knowing that Shinano was one, looked in, or at the 9 fluffy limbs as they grabbed onto his leg. Shinano, please stop that. I need to W work. Her face was flushed and her eyes glossy. With a hazy mind she got up and leaned on Bell, bringing her face close to his while he tried to keep the plates in his hands from falling. Nio Tilda, I want you now. Tilda Akaji smirked hearing that and in her drunken state went for the question that led to the killing blow. Fufu, trying to Maiake Cubs al Rishi. Akaji-san, please don't joke about that. Why Nyat Bell? I Nio our babyish will be adorable. The pub fell quiet as everyone, including Bell, stared at Shinano after the statement she dropped. Astrea and Ryu along some of the more innocent people dropped their forks, completely blown away with shock. The sound of the metal hitting the ground, ringing in everyone's ears. An awkward silence spread through the room as the ringing died down. Shinano hadn't moved, but she was definitely aware of what she said as her face had turned bright red like an apple. Her beautiful blue eyes were wide open and they stared right back at the rubellite ones of Bell. Kiyu. Nayu. Shinano ran out of the room with a shriek, heading right for the courtyard, leaving behind the flustered Bell. Akaji was the only one laughing like a maniac while everyone else looked, with either awe at her declaration or shock at the sudden burst of courage. Oh my, I didn't expect that from my dear Shinano. Good thing Muraski isn't here. His soul would have left his body. Bell turned to Amaterasu with plates still in hand, confused as to how to react. What should I do? Just leave her be for now. She'll get over it, hopefully. Alrighty, you're all mine, Neo. Akaji took the opportunity to jump on him, arms wrapped around his neck as she nuzzled her face against his. A certain blonde elf, however, wasn't about to let her actions slip. You indecent Renard, stop harassing Bell. Akaji smirked at the elf and seductively stroked him with her tail. Aren't you Jilaush? And no, his Elise's boyfriend. She doshanti shim to Mindji. The two turned to Elise, who smiled and waved. Go ahead. She. Akaji then pecked Bell's cheek to the shock everyone in the room, particularly Musasha and Kaga. No matter how much she loved to tease, the girl had never went as far as to lean on someone like that, much less kiss them even if drunk. Ryu, however, felt her heart clench Taking Astrea's cup of alcohol, she downed it all in one gulp before slamming it down onto the table. Ryu. Astrea worriedly looked at the elf as she stomped over to Belle with a flushed face. Not willing to just hand Belle over, Ryu grabbed onto his other arm and tried to pull Belle away from Akagi. Show what? I already kissed him on the lips. Huh. You want you go? I'll fight you. MIA, not wanting a fight to break out inside her establishment, ordered Belle to lead the two girls outside, much to his dismay. No one did anything to prevent the fight and, unlike usual, MIA just dismissed him, giving him free time to deal with them. After all, she wasn't going to have a scuffle inside her establishment. Akagi-san, Ryu, can't we talk this out? Naya way. Belle now had to stand in between the two girls as they readied their weapons, acting as a referee for the match he had unwillingly started. With the corner of his eye he also noticed a Tamamo bald Shinano peeking out with her blue eyes. Her gaze was fixed on him as he raised his hand. When he brought it down, the two wasted warriors dashed forwards and in their drunken stupor they stumbled. Losing their balance, they smashed their heads together, instantly knocking each other out. Belle looked incredulous as the two girls lay flat on the ground, face first. Their bodies didn't move nor twitch, they were completely out. With a sigh he made his way to them, and did the only thing he could think of and spun them around. With gentle hands he grabbed their heads and placed them on his lap before softly stroking their head. Seeing the small pout from the ball of fur that was Shinano, he couldn't help but chuckle before patting the spot next to him. Her blue eyes brightened immediately and unfurled herself before making her way over to Belle. As she sat down next to him, the two fell into an awkward silence as memories of what happened in the pub quickly resurfaced. So, about what I said before. Don't worry about that, Shinano. I don't mind. Shinano sharply inhaled, hearing that. Does that mean he would like to have children with me? No, bad Shinano. Let us not get ahead of ourselves. I still need to get Elise's approval. But do I need to? She seemed fine when other girls expressed their desire to date him. Even Artoria got the jump on me. Belle saw the girl pout as her mind was having an internal crisis. He did not know what the argument was, but he did know he was responsible, so he did the only thing he could think and do as of right now, and extended his tails over to her. She didn't see them approach and only realized when they landed on her head, gently stroking her head. Snapped out of her thoughts, she turned to face him, a blush growing stronger on her face as Belle continued. He offered no words, just a warm smile that put the sun and heavens to shame, and made her melt into his touch. With a happy hum she let herself enjoy the moment and shook her head, affectionately twitching her ears while her tails wrapped around his. The action made Belle blush as he was made very clearly aware of how intimacy with Renards worked by Amaterasu during a brief conversation back at the Colosseum. It did, however, confirm that Shinano was indeed looking at him as more than a friend. Annalise's words from before made sense now. It also showed to him that the redhead was much more aware than she let others on. Meanwhile, Shinano took the opportunity to lean on his shoulder. Her tails snugly enveloped his while the heads of the two other girls were laid down on his laps. She didn't mind sharing so long as she could share this warmth with Belle forever. I love you, Belle. The Colosseum was once again filled with people, more than yesterday, as the second day of the tournament started. Unlike the day before, it was scheduled to take early in the morning. All participants, including the disqualified familiars, were present in the VIP room. When Ibri announced the beginning of the first round for the day, welcomed the Grand Mage of Altina, the pride of Athena and the contender for the title of Greatest Mage, Morgana Le Fay of Athena Familiar. Facing her is my familiar's beloved captain, the sustainer of law and order, the guardian of Orario, Shakti Vamorov, Ganesha, Familiar. As the leader of the Familiar that acted as the police force of Orario, as well as having a mature attitude and beauty, she was an extremely popular figure in the city. Citizens idolized her for her actions, and the cheers became louder than ever before. While Belle had spoken a Little with RD, he had only ever exchanged greetings with the captain of the Ganesha, familiar. But he trusted the many good praises that Elise had given to the blue-haired girl. While watching, Bell happened to notice that amongst the Freya familiar only Freya and Otto were present. Knowing of their reputation, he could only imagine what kind of hellish experience Alfred was going through right now. He could only feel sorry for the poor Palum. Back to the arena. The two ladies made their way to the arena and stood face to face. Shakti wielded her golden spear, with a whip at her side, while Morgana stood with a black weapon, with blue highlights. It was a truly peculiar weapon, something akin to a mix of a staff and a spear. Get ready. Sadash. Wait. Morgana's emotionless voice halted Ivory, confusing Shakti, who was already in a stance and with her weapon at the ready. The white-haired woman then turned to the VIP room and pointed at Bell. I believe your name is Bell, am I correct? Why, yes. Very well, Bell, bear witness to this battle. I will show you the grandness of my magic, and when I win I will take you as my husband. I'll have you be mine and only mine. After all, you won't need anyone else with me as your bride. I'll provide for all your necessities, and I'll satisfy all your needs. It took Bell a moment to register her words before his face morphed into one of shock and confusion. Elise felt her eye twitch, but to everyone's surprise, exempting Arthur and the miss, the first to react was Artoria. Without hesitation, she grabbed Excalibur and launched it down at the mage. Morgana knew she would purposefully miss and didn't flinch even as the blade grazed her cheek. Bell saw the dark visage that Artoria wore. Her eyes were glaring with a passionate intensity, directing all her rage at the impertinent woman. Don't even think of laying a hand on our Bell, you witch. Who are you to stand in my way? I seek a worthy husband and someone who will deliver me the descendants I am looking for. Me the greatest mage of Altina and Bell, a Renard with unlimited potential for magic. Our heirs will become the greatest mags of all time. Artoria felt her blood boil hearing that, wishing nothing more than to rip the woman apart. Bell was worried by the unusual behavior, seeing that Arthur leaned in to inform him. Morgana is actually our half-sister. Since birth we've always been on bad terms with her, treating each other like enemies. Artoria's relationship with her, however, is far more sour than mine. The two clash every time they meet. While Morgana detests me, it is nothing compared the hatred that runs in her blood against Artoria. Bell nodded and silently went back to watching Artoria. Then I hope to meet you in the arena so that I can teach you who is superior. Fear not. After I thoroughly beat you, I'll make sure to claim Bell right before your eyes. Artoria felt like exploding when the expressionless woman showed Bell a slight smile. She wanted nothing more than to rush down there and skewer the white-haired mage. The only thing that stopped her was the hand of a Renard gently gripping her by the waist. His worried look was enough to calm her down. With a huff she caught Excalibur as Morgana threw it back at her without hesitation and sat down next to Bell. The miss, Take Mikazuchi, and Astrea looked to Athena, but she waved her hands, stating she had no control over that matter. Whatever she did, it was her own volition and it was beyond her power to stop her. Apparently one of the conditions she had when she joined was for the goddess not to get in her way of her search for a worthy husband. We can continue now. The people around the arena were all shocked, most because of the sudden declaration, but some caught notice of how Artoria said our Bell, suggesting that she too was in a relationship with Bell. No one in Orario except for the allied familiars knew of Bell's polygamy. It was yet to go public, but the hint had been dropped, and when it would go public, it would blow up. Well, you heard her, people. The match will begin now. Shakti was surprised when Morgana moved with speed that rivaled that of what you'd expect a Vanguard member to have, not a mage. To Loki's surprise, Reveria admitted that, when it came to combat capability, Morgana was superior, if not counting the difference in level. Though not particularly the prideful type of person, Reveria did like to think no one other than Althea could rival or surpass her magic, a concept now challenged by Bell and, potentially, Morgana. She didn't mind so much that Bell was that powerful, but the idea that Morgana was on par with her was weirdly irritating to the jade-haired elf. She just hoped that whatever Magic she did have would not be particularly powerful, or it would definitely hit. Home for the High Elf. Is it all set? It is. Orario will have quite the surprise awaiting them. Will it kill anyone? A few unfortunate people most likely. It is still just a preliminary test after all. Preparation for the true battle. But the whole point is to see the strength of the adventurers, not to kill them. A set of cackles rebounded off of the brick walls, spreading through the source as they ominously orchestrated the chaos that was about to take over Orario. Shakti found herself being pushed back by the mage, much to her frustration. She took a big leap back to give her time to counterattack. When Morgana approached, she thrusted 5 times in rapid succession, which were blocked by the mage's short chant. Protection spell. For some reason, seeing the smirk on the white-haired woman's face really irked. Shakti, is that all you got? Shakti felt her eye twitching. The girl was really getting on her nerves now. Right hand grabbed the whip by her side and let the thong unfurl. The moment the popper dropped down to the ground like a lightning bolt, Shakti swung the whip. The fall cracked as it lashed out at Morgana, who had jumped back. She was slightly surprised when her sliced cheek began bleeding just below the injury that Artoria had caused. Her brief surprise rapidly turned to a frown. She had to admit that getting injured in front of Belle, who she was trying to impress, wasn't a part of her plan. No, quite contrarily, it was detrimental towards her goal. Thoroughly and royally pissed off, Morgana decided to cast her strongest spell and end it at once. The kings are now away and the land up for the take. The lordless Camelot from now an unreachable utopia. Rise, my descendants, and rain down chaos. Crush the reign of the warrior king and put an end to his legacy. The 12 treasure stones embedded in the staff began glowing as her voice weaved the words of the chant. A bright blue magic circle expanded beneath her feet, allowing her to amplify and better control the spell. Born from the Isles, I am the last wielder of the Primeval Black Curse. Come and heed the call of the Spirit Queen, I who bestowed the Sword of the Lake. I am good and I am evil. Under my oppressive rule let the lands flourish. I shall spare no one who stand against me. Shakti rushed in to interrupt her, but as expected of Morgana, she had mastered concurrent chanting just as well as Ryu. She fended off any attacks sent her way with just as much precision as before. No longer holding back, Shakti found that she couldn't a single hit. Vicious and traitorous family, let mine vengeance feast on your royal blood. Let them dragon's soul return to Avalon, where I shall protect them for eons to come, so for them to never return. Pendragon's calamity. Multiple magic circles like the one that laid beneath the mage's feet formed in the sky. Blue pillars were summoned and fell down from the sky. Shakti dodged all the attacks, but immediately realized that they had surrounded her, trapping her inside. The ground then began glowing blue before an azure fire burst forth, covering the entire area inside. The pillars, one each an. Adi shouted worriedly as the flames engulfed the captain of the Ganesha. Familiar. When the walls of fire died down, her burnt body laid motionless at the center of the arena. Morgana walked over to the injured woman and watched her as she slowly regained consciousness, writhing in pain from the wounds. Consider yourself lucky. I used the mage ability to hold back, otherwise you'd be burnt to death. Turning her gaze to Ivory, who was terrified of her, was enough of a signal for him to understand the fight was over, albeit with trembling legs. The match is over. Morgana of Athena Familiar wins. My poor captain. The cheers filled the arena as they celebrated the victory. Morgana, however, had no interests in the crowd. She looked at Belle, but saw little to no recognition from him. Rather, he looked more worried about Shakti's current state. Seems like I'll have to find another way. That was quite the spell, a Reveria. When the blonde Paolum received no response, he turned to the vice-captain to see that she was staring at Morgana, her hand by her mouth as she bit down on her thumb. Out of frustration, he noticed her frown really displayed her displeasure at the potency of the spell. Though not as devastating as her Rhea Levitine, it definitely did more damage to a single target. While Adi rushed to see her sister, Belle, on other hand, was now fully concentrated on Artoria. Morgana's hatred for the Pendragon family was strong, so much that it had manifested as a magic spell. Artoria was clearly frustrated about that, but feeling Belle's hand on her own snapped her attention from the white-haired mage to the white-haired Renard. It didn't help, however, that Belle was being targeted by Morgana, adding to her rage. Calm down, Artie. The nickname came as a surprise, but for some reason she liked to hear him pronounce it. It was cute. There is a 1 in 4 chances you'll meet her in the next round. If you do, just don't kill her. Okay. I won't make promises I can't keep. How about if I offer you a present? A present? Yes, if you beat her without killing her, then it's just natural that you be rewarded. What kind of present? I'll let you fluff my tail. Deal. Belle stared at her for a moment before chuckling. That was quick. That was. I have a thing for cute things. The way she showed an uncharacteristically vulnerable and girlish side to her as she blushed and looked away was an adorable sight that Belle seared into his mind. It was precious, and he was sure he'd treasure it for years to come. But for now he'd take advantage of that, not that. He could hold back and bring her in for a hug before placing a tender kiss on her forehead. Be Belle. Hee. I have a thing for cute things as well, and you were just so adorable. Perhaps I'll pamper you more if you win your next fight. Artoria blushed slightly, yet brighter than she had ever before. The smile on her face, however, was not held back as she leaned into his touch, nuzzling into his chest. The fellow harem members cooed at the sight, while Arthur and the Miss smiled happily, as did most of the other onlookers like Take. But there were the jealous ones like Mordred, Lancelot, Shinano, and the captain of the TYR familiar, the guy who made clear advances towards Artoria only to be beat down in 3 hits by the woman herself. Heh. The god smirked at Beowulf as he looked on sadly. Oh, come on. When I asked her out, she beat me senseless. That is because you have no tact, my dear child, nor the Renard's charm or fluffy advantage. He also certainly didn't request to have sex straight off the bat. Honestly, it's no wonder that the only women you've slept with are prostitutes or one-night stands. Shut it, TYR. Look, I'm just saying, if you're looking for committed relationships, maybe you can learn a thing or two from the man with multiple girlfriends. Maybe I'll ask later. My poor captain was burnt mercilessly, ending with a crushing defeat. So, Morgana moves on to round 2. Now for the next match, please welcome everyone's beloved elf. Ranked amongst the top 5 most beautiful and popular woman in Orario. The breaker of 1,000 elven hearts. A sustainer of order and guardian of justice. Ryu, Lion of Astraea. Familiar. The girl who rivaled the popularity of AIS drew the attention and cheers of the audience. Though unofficial, Astraea and Loki had a competition going on as to who was more popular, causing the goddess of justice to smile at Loki, who only grumbled. Facing her is Alexander the Great of Elian Familiar, son of King Philip II and conqueror of the distant lands. At the age of 16, he started his first military campaign, from which he earned fame and glory, conquering many empires including the infamous Achaemenid Empire. He is known to be still undefeated at the age of 22. Let us see if his streak shall continue in this arena. Ryu wore her ceremonial outfit, which she had used during the meeting. Renamed Emerald Starlight, it had been slightly modified so as to be used practically in battle on orders of Astraea. Alexander, on the other hand, wore a completely red and gold armor, which matched his flaring red hair kept in a small braid. He walked with a confident smile, his hand on the hilt of his sword, as Ryu stopped a dozen steps before. Ryu, Lion, you live up to your reputation. This might be sudden, but I believe there is no better place than this grand stage. I know there were those who have asked other participants, and I hope to be more successful. But if I may, would you accept my proposal and take my hand in marriage? Ladies and gents, yet another proposal, though less forward than the one offered by the captain of the TYR Familiar. How will the renowned elven maiden respond? Ryu blinked, slightly surprised, but was quick to respond without any hesitation. I am honored by your feelings, Prince Alexander, but as you know, elves only fall in love once, and I can confidently say there already is someone who has already stolen away my heart. I intend to fight with everything I have in order for him to see me in return. The love I feel towards him. The blue eyes of the elf subtly glanced at the Rubellite-eyed Renard before returning his stoic gaze to the royal man. She was not embarrassed, nor did she blush. She was completely serious and confident of her feelings, which she proudly showed off. Though Alexander would be lying if he said he wasn't surprised by the rejection, he did somewhat see it come. He just hoped to have a chance, but by the way she spoke of the man she adored, there was no way he'd be able to win her over. Did everyone hear that? The Gale already has someone in her heart. She yet again breaks the hearts of thousands with that confession. Who is the lucky man? I believe some already know, but it is anyone's guess for now. The cries of many women and men alike could be heard from the audience as they were all indirectly rejected and their hopes dashed. Iskondo rubbed the back of his head and sighed before unsheathing his blade. That is unfortunate. Oh well, I guess all that's left is to see who is stronger. His smile was back full force as the battle was about to begin. If there was one thing he enjoyed above all, it was the anticipation of a true fight with someone of the same level. He feared none and nothing, for there was only the excitement of a battle. Ryu Lion, let us start this match with a grand beginning worthy of this stage. The elf understood what he wanted and nodded. Glory lies beyond the horizon. Challenge it because it is unreachable. Speak of conquest and demonstrate it, for the sake of my subjects who watch from behind me. In the sky of a now distant forest, infinite stars scattered in the endless night sky. Respond to my foolish voice. Give me now divine protection of star fire. Give the mercy of light to the one that abandoned you. Iskondo stood still, waiting for her to finish her spell, though Iskondo was known to be like that. It did surprise many. Come, wandering wind, the wandering traveler. Cross the sky and run through the wilderness, run faster than anything else. Imbue the light of stardust and destroy the enemy. Luminous wind. As spheres of green wind and golden light gathered around Ryu before being unleashed on the red-haired man. Ionioi hetero. Bucephalus. Golden figures that represented thousands of warriors rose from the dust and charged forwards. The two spells clashed right in the middle. Slowly the orbs of wind and light began pushing the soldiers back. Hurrah! Pushing everything they had into the spells, the two came to a standstill until the battle of endurance was won by Ryu, who had more mind. As he reached his limit, Iskondo was quickly pushed back until one orb hit him, followed by a dozen more, resulting with a massive explosion that ended the standoff. Ryu didn't give him a chance to fight back and rushed forwards. When the dust cleared, the kneeled down Alexander was surprised by the swing of a silver blade that he barely managed to dodge. Each step back he took back was an attack he had to block. But the following heavy attack broke his guard, presenting a perfect chance for Ryu to land a solid punch into his gut, before following it with a kick to the face. When Alexander looked back up, the match was over, the silver blade resting by his neck. That's it. Ladies and gents, praise the Astrea Familia, for Ryu Lion has won the match. Suffice to say, when the elf returned, many smug smiles from her fellow Familia members awaited her, as well as an embarrassed Renard and Goddess. Though she felt a blush creep up, she maintained her confidence and made her way back to Astrea's side. Elise, in the meantime, was snugly sat on Belle's lap while Artoria held his right hand. Meanwhile, his left hand was occupied by Tsubaki, leaving a pouting Kagaya who was promised a cuddling session later, preventing her from complaining. The victor of the recent match sat down but couldn't look up to meet everyone's gaze no matter how hard she tried, and it certainly didn't help her when RD began teasing her. And so another one falls to Mr. Fluff's charm. Be quiet, RD. The blue-haired girl, now calm after confirming her sister's state, simply giggled as she watched the red ears turn even darker. That was quite the declaration. It seems this tournament is a confession event for whose heart have been stolen. But I digress. Let us move on to the next match. Despite the comment, Ryu silently thanked Ibri as he took everyone's attention off. One of the most anticipated fights. Everyone's beloved sword princess takes the stage for this round. The cheers went completely out of control at the name, as expected from everyone. The breaker of yet another 1,000 hearts, the stoic girl who holds the record for fastest Level up. One of the executives and pillars of the Loki familia. A prodigy with her sword, earning her the title of Sword Princess. With elegance and beauty she ascends to the battlefield. AIS Wallenstein. Yeah, go AIS. AIS Tan, you're the best. Loki and her familia began cheering for their member with enough passion that Belle was reminded of Elise. Facing her is the king of Babylonia, said to be the second oldest king of humanity, the successor to the golden archer of the Enki familia, and the longest living human, even older than Kratos, Gilgamesh Babylon. According to the tales Belle had read, the man was at least 800 years old. No one mentioned how he attained immortality. The only reason he was still level 5, after having a fauna for 800 years, was due to him not having any interest in seeking strength, focusing only on the well-being of his people. That changed, however, with the fall of the Zeus and Hera familiars, though how much of that is true he had no clue. AIS walked into the arena alongside a handsome blonde man with blood-red eyes. His whole body was covered with a golden armor that looked impenetrable. What caught even more eyes, however, was the golden key that he kept in his hand. Holy shit, is that EA? The gods looked clearly shocked, much to the confusion of the mortals. Take, what is EA? I suppose you wouldn't know, Belle. EA, though a lance, is known as the sword of rupture, the divine weapon of god Enki. That's a divine weapon. Belle's eyes shone with excitement hearing that. The miss was the next to speak. That's right, you'll see its true form later probably. You know, Belle, right now, you stand before the greatest collection of divine weapons and weapons on par with said divine weapons. I do. That's right. There is EA, a divine weapon, and as you probably know, the sword on your back is equivalent to a divine weapon. Yes, Hephaestus has mentioned that. Then there is Excalibur, Caliburn, and Durandal, all of which are on par with divine weapons. Most of the weapons that belong to the executives of the Baphomet familia are also on par with divine weapons. But you should know that there are two more genuine divine weapons: Avalon, the ever-distant Utopia, and Rongominiad, the Tower of the World, both of which are in possession of Artoria, since she was the only one recognized as worthy by the weapons. The Renard turned to Artoria, who sharply inhaled, seeing the big shiny eyes of her lover. She knew she'd have to show him the weapons later, and she could never deny that. Look, divine weapons recognize their masters. That's right, Belle. Kratos also holds two divine weapons, which is how he killed gods before. Permanently, that is. The Chaos Blades and the Blade of Olympus. Then there is Leviathan and Draupne that rivals divine weapons. Oh, that is quite the number of powerful weapons. Belle marveled, asking more questions while Gilgamesh and AIS got ready to face each other. I hope you are ready to face defeat, Sword Princess. Gilgamesh stood proudly with crossed arms as he looked at the blonde girl before him. She didn't know why, but seeing his confident expression pissed AIS off beyond all reason. If there was one thing she hated more than monsters and even the OEBD, was when people underestimated her and undermined her strength, as if mocking her wish to curb her vengeful desire, like she was too weak. I hope you are ready to eat your words. Loki was a little surprised to see the normally aloof and stoic princess be so aggressive. Seeing the animosity, Ibri then proceeded to announce the start of the match. Without sparing a second, AIS launched forwards, casting aerial enhanced with her wind. She closed the distance in a second. Before she could attack him, however, Gilgamesh cast a spell, opened the doors to the golden capital, and summoned the king's treasury to its His Highness behest, gates of Babylon. AIS didn't dare underestimate the spell and jumped back as hundreds of golden, rippling circles appeared in the sky. Weapons of all types began jutting out of each circle and pointing towards her. She watched curiously, but like the usual airheaded knight does, she soon lost interest, as it was just another attack. Surrender, Sword Princess. Not a chance. Uruk. As soon as she refused to surrender with a single word, the weapons levitating in the sky began shooting out towards her. AIS dodged and blocked with desperate, letting the occasional weapon just bounce off her wind shield. Seeing as she wasn't going to give up, quietly, he raised the golden key and twisted it. Like gears in a machine, they began rotating and glowed red. A sphere of light shone, and soon a golden weapon materialized. Belle could see why he was told that the Sword of Rupture was actually a lance. It had a golden base, while the shaft was black and red, spinning menacingly. Wow! AIS could hear the excitement in Belle's voice all the way from her position. Unknowingly, making a small smile appear on her face, not wanting to lose the match in front of. Familiar and perhaps Belle, not that she could explain why, she dashed forwards. She avoided the horizontal swipe before thrusting forwards with her rapier. Gilgamesh had no trouble avoiding the attack before taking a step back. Soon the two began displaying their impressive skill with their respective weapons. Their blades clashed at speeds which people below level 4 couldn't even see or follow. The two clashed without a pause, the smirk on Gilgamesh's face ever present. AIS frowned as she couldn't gain the advantage, not that Gilgamesh could either. For a good 10 minutes the two proceeded to have a battle of attrition, testing each other's endurance as they matched each other move for move. As expected from Loki and her familiar, the blonde knight danced around with incredible fluidity and elegance. Gilgamesh, however, was surprised to see how remarkable swordsmanship was despite his 8th-century-long life. He had never seen something like that, though it did remind him of someone, though he couldn't exactly tell who it was. She reminded him of. AIS, however, was rapidly running out of stamina, having to not only defend herself from Gilgamesh but his spell as well, as it kept hurling different weapons at her. It would seem as if I have underestimated you, Sword Princess. Seems like I have. To take you seriously. Raw Sword of Rupture. Sweep thine enemy and pave a way for Uruk. Annihilation. The lance began spinning as wisps of red energy shot out. With lightning speed, AIS jumped away as EA shot out a beam of energy, incinerating a straight path all the way across the other side of the arena. Restrain the nemesis who dares to stand before the transcendent ruler. Chains of Enkidu. Golden chains shot out of the ground and wrapped around the Sword Princess's limbs, completely stopping her. AIS tried to shake herself free, but it was futile. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw aim his lance at her again. In that split moment, her desire to win sword and the winds responded accordingly. Knowing how strong he was, she decided to use a move she had sworn not to use on humans due to it being too powerful. Her winds converged and started roaring like a powerful gale, the wind shining brighter than ever before. With an emerald color, Lil Rafaga. The two opposing forces clashed head-on, causing the ground adjacent to ripple as shockwaves shook the arena. After several seconds of struggle, the two attacks slowly cancelled each other out, leaving an exhausted Gilgamesh and AIS. The two panted and gasped for air. The first to recover was the blonde king, who began preparing an attack that sent an ominous feeling to everyone presently watching. I shall perform this final blow as a parting gift to you. AIS thought it was weird he announced it, but realized as the divine weapon began spinning that he wasn't announcing the attack, rather it was part of the chant and was already charging it up. She knew that if he was allowed to use it she'd lose for sure, but she, staggering and couldn't conjure her winds properly. With beaten-up body she rushed forwards. I will tell you of the beginning. Heaven and earth split, nothingness. Congratulated creation. My sword of rupture cleaved the world. Mortar of the stars, heaven's hell is the eve of creation's celebration. Now you shall die and be silent. Inuma Eli, Shah. Just as he was about to release it, AIS got in reach and slashed with her rapier, hitting EA, caused it to swing away and aimed at the VIP stand. Before he realized it, he had finished pronouncing the name of the spell and gasped when he realized where it was pointing at. Though he tried to restrain it as much as possible, an orange beam that shone like the sun shot out, aiming straight for Amaterasu. Shit. Amaterasu-sama. None of the children could react or move in time, not even the level 7s, as they were coincidentally distracted or busy buying a snack the moment it happened. Amaterasu watched as the beam was about to hit her. Then a wall appeared in front of her. No, not a wall, but a person. Bell spun around and swung his tail to meet the beam. To everyone's shock and surprise, Bell smacked the deadly spell out of existence as if he was slapping a fly. His tail looked completely fine, like it had no effect. How is that possible? Gilgamesh was absolutely astonished. Even if he did hold back about half the power, the spell was deadly, with the ability to tear through space and time. A move with the power of the sun to split heaven and earth. Yet he simply negated it like it was nothing. But then it dawned on him the severity of his actions, and despite his pride he didn't hesitate to bow to the goddess of the sun to apologize. AIS soon followed example, but despite the shock, the white and golden-haired woman was generous enough to forgive them. Though awkward at the start, the two resumed the match on Ivory's mark, and while AIS was exhausted, Gilgamesh was doubly so, having spent all his mind with the massive attack. It wasn't a surprise when AIS managed to catch him by surprise and land a round house kick to the face. Though it didn't knock him out, presented the perfect chance for AIS to place her blade by his neck, effectively ending the match. What an awesome fight, ladies and gents. AIS Wallenstein of Loki Familiar claims a hard-fought victory. You fought well. Looking up, he saw his goddess and best friend smiling at him. Thank you, Enkidu. But you were distracted. A little. The goddess nodded understandingly. Of course, the way Belle blocked your spell was nothing short of miraculous. Belle? Yep, the little adorable Renard. He looked over at said Renard, who he had briefly watched out of interest the past 2 days. He was half tempted to use his clairvoyance skill to learn his history, but it would be an invasion of privacy, and while he wasn't that prude of a man, that didn't mean he didn't have standards. He wasn't going to look into who he was without his permission, though. He did catch his attention. What are you thinking, Gil? He turned to the green-haired man that was his best friend. I was just thinking that he might be a good influence for Ainsworth. Oh, I'll mull over it. Yeah, way to go, AIS. Tiona jumped up and down as the Sword Princess returned victorious, while Loki, Familiar, celebrated the victory take called Belle over, seeing as he was one of 2 competitors left for one last status update before the match started. I see your training has paid off. Your status has gained quite a few points, Belle. Oh, what's the matter, take? It would seem like you have developed a new skill. That was enough to snap everyone's attention to Belle, including the Loki Familiar, who were snapped out of their triumph. They watched curiously as Take leaned forward and whispered in Belle's ear. It was a curious sight to see Belle suddenly turn into a tomato as steam shot out of his head. They were all curious what this skill was about, but once again Ivory came to the rescue as the tournament resumed. Please welcome the final participants of the first round, the Fallen Duke and the Mercenary, champion of the Ars Familiar, Rex Schroer. Many may be surprised that Ars has been allowed to participate considering his attacks on the city, but a truce was made with Rakia, and as a symbol of peace will be participating in this event. Now facing him is Orario's rising star, the man who took world by surprise, and the man who conquered the heart of the captain of the Astrea Familiar, the fluffy Renard, Belle Yamato Katuski of Takamikazuchi Familiar. Everyone giggled, chuckled, and laughed at Belle's disgruntled pout as he was announced as a fluffy Renard. He'd have a long talk about this with Ivory. HMPH. Prepare to lose. I will show you that I am superior to you, beast man, and that you are not worthy of the Scarlet Harnel. The competitor from the Ars Familiar had short, messy steel-white hair and purple eyes. His face the telltale of his status as a noble. Just on appearance he looked like a proud and ambitious person, which didn't really mesh well with the Renard's personality. He stumped away as he kept on sneering, while Belle curiously tilted his head before turning to look to Elise, who simply sighed. Sorry about that, Belle. Is one of the 1,000 hearts I broke. Belle took her hands in his and smiled sweetly. Don't worry, Elise. Coo, you're too adorable. Elise felt an arrow of pleasure shoot through her heart. Suddenly an idea popped up in her mind and leaned in close to his ear, whispering sultry words into him. Oh, by the way, Belle, if you win I will give you a nice reward, Tilda. Though embarrassed, it certainly pumped him up quite a bit. Must win. Rex and Belle walked down to the middle of the arena. Cheers filled the air as they stared at each other, the human glaring at the Renard. Belle, however, maintained an expressionless face, studying his opponent without revealing his inner thoughts. Rex looked impatient as he drew his spear, his fingers twitching more frantically by the second. Then Bell sighed, with a look that showed disappointment. His hand that had been resting on the hilt of his pseudo-divine weapon gently let go before grasping his pair of golden flisses. The action drew on the curious attention of the people in the VIP section. You want to play with knives? Draw your sword, Renard. No. Ivory felt a drop of sweat rolling down the side of his face as tension rose. No. That's right, you heard me. You are not worthy of this weapon. Using it to fight. You would be an insult to my love. Otilda heard that Sabaki. His saying that he is not worthy of being shown your love. He sure holds you in high regards, doesn't he? Sabaki didn't bother to respond to the teasing goddess. She could clearly feel the smug smiles of her fellow girlfriends and her goddess, though from behind no one would be able to tell, as she neither reacted nor said anything. She couldn't help the speeding heart beat and the blush, nor could she fight against the smile that was blooming on her face. Go get him, Bell. How dare you look down on me? Bell wondered if he was part chienthrope because he was growling like a rabid dog. Well, it seems like the two contestants are ready, so let us start this match. The moment that Ivory finished announcing the start of the match, Rex charged forwards. Bell got into his stance as the spear drew closer before deflecting to the left at the last second with his right flisser. Carrying on the momentum, his body spun left in a full circular motion, using his back to catch Rex by surprise as he noticed too late the flisser in the Renard's left hand. The purple-eyed man leaned back but couldn't avoid the blade that sliced a good length of his cheek. In his awkward position, however, he had no chance to react to the kick to his face that sent him flying back. Rex crashed to the ground several meters away from Bell, bouncing and rolling to a stop, face first into the ground. He gasped as the air had been knocked out of his lungs. Take and the girls who had experienced a hit from Bell knew very well how unnatural the Renard's strength was. It was to no one's surprise that when our mercenary lifted his face, his expression was one filled with rage and hatred. Goo! You! How dare you! Unlike everyone else, Bell didn't chase him down, only standing there confused as to why he was so angry. Rex coughed as the pain from the kick shot through his body and slowly got to his feet. Make no mistake, the only reason he got up was because Bell held back. A full-powered kick wouldn't kill him, but it would definitely leave him with a concussion. Nor was it Bell's intent to attack at the man's pride by kicking his face. It had come to him as an instinct, one which had been drilled into him by Elise, who just loved to knock him out, to give him a lap pillow amidst their training. Though Rex didn't know that, and as a prideful man his body was filled with rage. Wiping his now bleeding nose, he dashed forwards and swung horizontally, making the Renard jump back. He followed it through with a jab which Bell dodged, and with yet another graceful twirl smacked him with an uppercut from his tail. His body spun as it flew in the air and landed with sickening crunch. Bell flinched and realized when he got up again that the uncomfortable sound was his nose breaking when he face-planted. With a purple nose and eye, he growled at Bell before his grip on the shaft tightened to the point where his knuckles turned white. Bell had embarrassed him in front not only Elise and Orario but the rest of the world. He lunged forward, and for 2 minutes he tried his hardest, using everything he had learnt, every move and technique. Bell, however, dodged all of the attacks with the occasional parries and the kick or smack to the face. After the third hit to the face, he lost it as his vision turned red. You insolent bastard. Treacherous pride. Bell wondered what he meant when Rex's body bulked and a light red aura covered him from feet to head. An enhancement. Rex attacked once again, but this time he was faster and stronger. Soon the two began clashing once again. With Bell matching him move for move, he found himself becoming more and more frustrated. It was only a matter of time before he made a mistake, and commit it he did. For the sin of an unguarded wide swing, he was punished with a kick to his gut, sending tumbling back. How? Rex scratched his head furiously as he was unable to overpower the Renard. No matter how hard he tried. You should have leveled up only days ago. I have been level 5 for years and I'm about halfway to level 6. Yet with my skill strengthening me, I still can't overpower you. How? Bell stayed quiet, not to spite him, but rather because he wasn't sure how to respond without giving away his secret. The silence, however, only proved to enrage the man. Further, who dashed forwards to attack him once again. Finn bit his thumb as he heard Rex shout the impossibility of Bel's strength. Loki could hear the contemplative hum as his eyes were fixed on the Renard. Leaning in, she wondered what her captain thought of the mercenary's statement. What do you think, Finn? I would agree. Just like he did, I too did a little research on the competitors. Well, I was already doing so before the tournament in Bel's case, but that's beside the point. Now, seeing Rex fight, I can tell you that the man has the skill to back up his arrogance. Though his personality leaves much to be desired, his skill is the real deal. Rather, his hubris was born from his skill, not his status as a noble. How would he compare against AIS? AIS would almost certainly win, but make no mistake, he'd put up a good fight. With that enhancement, he'd be able to keep up with AIS. The only advantages that AIS has being her superior skill with the sword and her stronger enhancement spell, Aerial. Though he is good with the spear, we know how talented our sword princess is, and where she gets that from. As for the reason he is demonstrating such a pathetic attempt, his skill is that he is easily led and clouded by his emotions. I'd say that if he had stayed calm, he might even have put a decent fight against Bel. Loki nodded, understanding what he was saying, but at the same time she was surprised at the unusually high praise he gave the mercenary. At that point she turned to Take with a curious glint in her eyes. So Take, wanna spill the beans? What's the secret behind Mr. Fluffus' strength? The Far Eastern god, however, simply puffed his chest and grinned at the red head. As if I'd tell you, Loki. Boo, you party pooper. Though curious, Loki wasn't one to force others to tell them their secrets unless urgently necessary. With a disappointed sigh, she resigned herself that Take Mikazuchi wasn't going to simply give it up. That was short moment of distraction was enough for the match to come to an end. He messed up. Hearing Finn deduce the end of the match, Loki and Take Mikazuchi turned back to the arena to see Bel deflecting a thrust before stabbing Rex right through the shoulder. He then followed it ruthlessly with a 3-hit kick combo before a snap of his tail sent him to the edge of the arena, crashing into a wall. Unlike before, Bel didn't wait on the human. Leaving him no time to react, he dashed forward. And by the time Rex looked up in an attempt to defend himself, Bel was already a step away from him. His blades crossed over each other, gently touching, pushing against his neck, just enough so that they didn't draw blood. That's match. The Renard of the Take Mikazuchi familia is the winner. The cheers rang out across the Coliseum as Bel sheathed his weapons. Sparing a glance at the distraught man, he made his way back to the VIP stand, where he barely managed to take a glance of the others before he was rapidly whisked away by his red-haired girlfriend, Elise. Sorry, Bel, but it's time for your reward, Tilda. Now, I can wait until later. Sorry, but dash. She leaned into his ear and whispered with a sultry voice. It's me that can't wait anymore. Chapter 10. Chapter Notes. NSFW content. There are 3 smut scenes in this chapter. Bel was dragged away by Elise, leaving the others to chuckle while Akagi, Ryu, Shinano, Artoria, Tsubaki, Kagaya, and surprisingly Musasha and Modred were quick to follow, though it was under the pretense that it was because they were suspicious of him. Not many bought that reasoning. The joyous mood, however, was ruined when Rex returned. His face snarling as he looked around, presumably looking for the white-haired Renard who just kicked his ass. Where is he? Answering him curtly was Take Mikazuchi, abducted by the red-haired captain of the Astraea familia. Rex grumbled and turned to leave. Where do you think you're going? The voice that spoke sent a chill down everyone's back. It was deep and gravelly, making it unusually appealing, yet it maintained a calm tone that felt overbearing. Rex had no time to even turn around before the man whose voice had spoken was suddenly standing in front of him. The fallen noble looked up and saw 2 men. Both of the warriors towered over him. The 2 shared long black to red hair, tied in a ponytail, and crimson eyes. They wore traditional Far Eastern hakamas and kimonos, one red, the other purple. Like most members of the Amaterasu familia, they carried a katana by their side. They looked lax, their hands nowhere near their hilts, but anyone could tell. One wrong move, and they'd dice you in a million pieces in the blink of an eye. Yorichi Tsugikun and Michikatsu Tsugikun, the level 7 and 6 twin brothers of the Amaterasu. Familiar, the number 1 and 3 respectively of the familiar in terms of power. Seriously, what's with you nobles? Murakami, you ain't leaving either. Sanemi, the same man who punched Murakami and now held him by the collar, walked forwards and stood behind Rex, pinching him in between himself and the two samurais. Oi, my brother asked you a question. Rex directed his attention back to the two in front of him. I need to go find that Renard and make sure he understands th-. A loud cracking sound interrupted him and stopped Michikatsu from voicing his rather contrasting opinion. Following the source of the sound, everyone found themselves looking at the Baphomet familiar. The black-haired level 7 looked terrified of the person next to him, a girl with hazel eyes and long orange-brownish chestnut hair. In her hand were the remains of a thick wooden mug which she had crushed in her hand. Asuna, said girl, got up and stomped up to the fallen noble. She was nothing short of furious and, before anyone could say anything, a nasty slap sent the white steel-haired man rolling on the ground. Everyone stood, gasping in shock, but the wrath in her voice sent everyone recoiling back. You are such an irredeemable pile of garbage. Find him. To challenge him. To get in the way. Because he's not worthy. What kind of bullshit is that? You were beaten. Fair and square. And whenever I look at Elise and the other girls, they all look happy. You, however, have been nothing short of a pain in the ass. Just a sore loser whose heart was broken from a rejection. The livid man held his cheek shot up at the accusation. What right do you have to criticize me? Oh, I have every right. I started dating Kirito long before joining the Baphomet. Familiar. But, because he was a commoner and I a noble, I was met with opposition at every turn. Never being able to freely express my love for him. Family, friends, and strangers who called themselves my fellow companions due to them being nobles. So let me tell you that I know very well how it feels to have someone undermine your relationship. Rather, what right do you have to attack Belkuin? You think you're special, superior, or worthy? Get a reality check. You're nothing but an arrogant and cowardly loser. How da-. Enough. Oz finally spoke up, having witnessed everything. He was hoping that the criticism would do something to make him understand the flaws of his ways, but in the end it proved useless. My lord. Silence, Rex. I thought that perhaps you'd learn how to respect others, but clearly that didn't work. Loki leaned towards the man who stood beside the god of war and whispered into his ear. Is that really Oz? But apparently she wasn't quiet enough, as Oz turned to her with a disgruntled look. I can hear you, Loki. Geh. The man who Loki had questioned chuckled and nodded. Yes, he is Kami Loki. I am Marius Victrix Rakia, the crown prince of Rakia and the advisor of this meathead. Oi, Marius, come on, man. The redhead watched as her fellow god whined before turning back to the prince. How did this happen? The wonders of love. One of the 7 mysteries of this world, my lady. Every god present looked at Oz with a shocked look. What? You, the meathead who always waged war, fell in love. Hey, everyone changes all right. And yes, I fell in love with the most wonderful woman. After she, quite literally, slapped me and set my brain right. That is why I decided to change. Oh, so that's why you suddenly stopped waging wars and being so hot-headed. Yup, quite right. But of course Rex couldn't stay quiet any longer. As a matter of fact, that just now was a record. My lord, that was. Rex began going on a rant, passionately sharing many of the thoughts he had. Not that it mattered, as it all went ignored by Oz, who instead turned to Marius. Hey Marius, when you had to deal with me back then, was I so persistently annoying? Yes, my lord. He felt an arrow piercing his heart when his advisor acknowledged the fact. Without a shred of hesitation. I am so sorry, Marius. To have to deal with something like that. Every day. The blonde human smiled at the words. I'm glad that you have come around. Thank Maria for that. Yumu, quite right. But just so you know, Asama, I believe that Rex has long since passed the annoyance that you were. Eh, that bad? Yes, You were far easier to deal with and much less volatile. Though he would have loved to laugh at that, it couldn't help but bring a frown to the god. The piece of news was worrying to say the least. Rex. The man stopped immediately and turned to Oz and gulped, seeing the glint in his eyes. His face was deadly serious, his voice stoic and his lips hidden behind his hands-on, which he was leaning, but he could feel the irritated scowl. You are the vice captain and the only level 5 of my familia. My strongest fighter. But, make no mistake, unlike Marius you are replaceable, though it does grant you some privileges. That doesn't mean you can do anything you want. First of all, Rakia is not the strongest country out there, and you certainly aren't the strongest this world has seen. No, you're a far cry from that. Compared to the Empress and the Olympian, you're nothing short of a pebble, and the same applies for quite a few people here. Not only is your behavior an insult to the Zeus and Hera familia, you lack respect for others. You even lost to the Renard, yet intend to challenge him so foolishly. Perhaps you didn't notice, as you were clearly blinded by your wrath. But he completely toyed with you. He held back and would have definitely smashed you in a second if he fought with everything he had. It's time you wake up. Any more of this and, though it pains me, I will seal your fauna permanently. Where are we going, Elise? The red-haired girl dragged Belle through the city by his hand. Well, the next rounds of the tournament won't start until tomorrow, so let's go on. A date. How about we start by getting lunch? With the rest of the girls, that is. Belle blinked before turning around and noticed that his other girlfriends had followed them, with Ryu, Shinano, Akagi, Musasha, and Mordred in tow. Hey, what are you girls doing here? Knowing who the question was aimed at, Kagaya, Artoria, and Tsubaki took their place by Belle's side with Elise. All but Akagi blushed at the question. Akagi had no shame to admit that she wanted to be part of the date, while Shinano and Ryu shyly stated that they wanted to spend more time with him. Musasha and Mordred, however, vehemently denied any romantic interest, saying they were there to supervise them and keep them from doing anything suspicious. Though it was hard to believe when they blushed so fiercely. And boy did Akagi intended to fully exploit that and tease Musasha. Sure you do. Did you know, Belle? Musasha is such a naughty little vixen. What the hell do you think you're saying? She had these really wet dreams of you wrapping your tail around hers as your bodies pushed against each other, sharing in each other's heat as you broke your way into her heart from behind. Such a love gare. The sheath of Mazesh's long tachi slammed into the back of Akagi's head, interrupting her lewd depiction that had left many girls blushing like tomatoes. Akagi, you goddamn insufferable fox. The purple-haired Renard was ready to explode, her face red with both embarrassment and rage, as she felt an irresistible desire to skin Akagi, but held it back for now. The damage was done, though, and her mind instantly went back to her sister's words, her mind piecing together the dream. His firm and warm-toned body meshed against her supple skin, searing her with the intense heat of his own flesh. Slowly, with the care and love expected of a partner, he inserted himself into her and war. Foo, someone is having a very lewd dream, or should I call it a desire, which they very well wish for it to become reality. Oh, if Glaze could kill Musasha, would have exterminated the world and burnt a hole through the very sun. If not for being in public, she would have pulled the blade out without any hesitation. Now, Akagi, enough of your teasing. Sure thing, Shinano Wani-chan tilde. The blue-haired Renard stared at her suspiciously and narrowed her eyes. Why do I feel like she's teasing me now? More importantly, do you mind if we tag along, Belle, Elise? Kagaya swiftly changed the subject as she sought the permission from the couple. As expected, both nodded with a bright smile. Of course not. Come on, let's go. Elise dragged the group into a restaurant nearby, getting them a table large enough for the entire group. Musasha could only feel bad for the staff as they ordered a mountain of food that would without a doubt strain the cooks of the establishment. Setting that aside, she returned her gaze to Belle. She still remembered clearly when he landed back down, with Akari in his hands, his 9 tails beautifully flowing behind him. That same man was bashfully opening his mouth to allow Kagaya to feed him, much to the black-haired girl's delight. For the next hour she observed his innocent yet caring nature as his face transitioned between embarrassment and loving depending on the situation. Like when he was with Akari, every action was slow and gentle. Completely different from his attitude in battle. His gaze back in the arena was steel cold, and his every action was fast and vicious with the intent to defeat his opponent. She could only imagine his look when he faced something he'd fight to the death. For some reason, just imaging it sent a tingle down her back. Mordred too focused on Belle. She had seen his battles and she knew at sight that he was holding back. She wondered how strong he truly was. She was born and raised to fight, to be a machine of war before the Miss Familiar saved her. But certain aspects stuck to her even after she was rescued, and one of them was the fact that she was a complete battle junkie. No matter how much she loved Artoria and was loyal to her, her desire to fight was something she would never be able to set aside. Before more questions could be raised, however, the group found themselves leaving the restaurant. Having finished their meal, they headed for the closest plaza. Apparently Elise had already planned ahead of time what she intended to do. What now, Elise? Now, my dear Kagaya, is where the date really starts. There are plenty of couple things to do. After all, like buying a creep and sharing it with your loved one, or ones in this case. They all followed her finger as she pointed to a store. Good, then let us do just that. The group sat in a park away from prying eyes as they didn't want anyone intruding or interrupting them. Tsubaki leaned her back against the tree behind her as she cushioned Belle's head with her large mounds. Much to his embarrassment, Elise in the meantime took her place on Belle's lap, while Kagaya and Artoria, though less daring than the vice-captain of the Estrella Familia, flanked him on each side. Not too close to them, yet not too far, were the other five, three of whom stared jealously at the close proximity they had with Belle. Scratch that, they are completely pushed up against him. Ryu was scandalized by their bold actions, yet jealous at the same time. Shinano and Akaji weren't faring any better, their pouts gracefully adorning their faces. Musasha and Mordred blushed as they tried their best to eat their creep and ignore the intimate exchange going on just next to them. I can't stand it anymore. The four girls looked as Akaji walked up to the group of lovers and was quickly welcomed, in much to their shock. Shinano, however, soon found her veins popping on her forehead when Akaji turned back and shot her a smug smile before returning her attention to Belle, who she was speaking to. That damn cheeky fox. Both Shinano and Ryu couldn't just stand back and do nothing, particularly when Akaji taunted them and got the head start as she sat between Kagaya and Elise, leaning her head on Belle's shoulder. Soon enough, Musasha and Mordred were sat alone as the others all glomped onto Belle. So, what do you think of Belle, Mordred-san? I mean, back at the arena you said he was suspicious and all. That's why you followed him. But is that what you really think? There was a moment of silence before the knight looked at Amethyst Beauty momentarily, before turning to Belle. She watched as he smiled lovingly at his girlfriends and sighed. No, not really. Setting aside the excuse I gave, from what I've seen, Belle is kind and innocent. A heart of gold with which he loves all of them equally. No wonder a harem would work, and they all seem happy with it. Honest to a fault too, it's not a surprise so many women fall for him if he just goes saying such sweet words to them all. So much so that I wouldn't be surprised if he pissed off someone with his honesty. But despite it all, he is not naive. I can't really point out anything of negative really, other than the fact that he goes around seducing women right and left. Musasha nodded and agreed with her explanation. Belle was without a doubt a noble person, but being a noble person wasn't enough for her to accept him as worthy of Shinano. She loved her sister dearly, so she believed she only deserved the best. But Belle was rapidly working to meet her expectations. She was also aware how much Shinano loved Belle. Ever since she found out he was nine-tailed Renard, she instantly became fond of him. But that was just the starting point. Just being a nine-tailed fox wouldn't have made her fall so deep into the pit that was love. Rather, it was due the fact that she was being exposed to his caring and gentle nature that quickly turned their adoration to love. Every story he told her brought her closer to him and His desire to be a hero made her realize that she had found the person she desired. She was head over heels for him, before she had even noticed. Good luck, lil sis. So, let us talk a second about the future. Elise smiled brightly as she straddled Belle and nuzzled his neck with her cheek. You mean how you intend to expand the harem? Correct, Kagaya. But I also want to talk about how I want to develop this relationship and my goal of turning this into a polyamory. Everyone stared at her silently. I can already see the confusion and questions popping in your heads. As such, allow me to explain. There are polyamories, polygamies, and polyandry. Polygamies is what Belle currently has, a harem where everyone is his girlfriend. Polyandry is the opposite, where a girl would have multiple partners. And our destiny is polyamory, where everyone loves everyone. Tsubaki raised her hand with a raised brow. I don't quite follow. Oh. Luckily Belle came in for the save. I get it. While you all love me and you will also get romantically involved with the other girls. She wants everyone to love each other. Imagine it as a marriage. Not only will you get married to me, but you will also get married to Elise, so instead of her being your sister wife, she will be your actual wife. I see. An all-out, every-way group relationship. Wait, that means I'll get romantically involved with Elise. You don't want to. The red-haired girl feigned to be hurt, pouting at Tsubaki. Well, I never thought about that. I don't exactly swing that way. But I guess I'm not against trying it. Elise smiled brightly and hugged Tsubaki. Of course, that is just a suggestion, not everyone who intends to get with Belle needs to learn to love the other girls. If they just don't want to, then that is fine as well. The girls all smiled as they looked at Elise. Hee hee. Besides, I always had fantasies about some of you girls. And now I get to live them out. And I get a princess to boot, hee hee. Just like that, all the wholesome vibes were gone. Way to ruin the moment, Captain. Oh, come on, don't be like that, Kagaya. It was just after dinner that Elise once again whisked Belle away. The group of girls from the date had been allowed to have dinner with the rest of the Estrella familia in the Stardust Garden, where they all savored Belle's cooking. While all the girls were delightfully distracted, Elise shut the door and began smooching Belle. Elise Tilda. Hee hee, you have no idea how much I missed this. She returned to devouring his lips hungrily, which Belle happily allowed. Her lips parted and softly pushed her tongue forwards against his before they started dancing, swirling around each other. The heated exchange continued as she grabbed his face while Belle grasped her waist with one hand while the other began fondling her left butt cheek. Tilda. She giddily pushed harder against him, grinding herself on him. Oh dear Estrella, I love you so much, Belle. Me too, ha, Elise. Belle soon found himself against the wall as Elise kept on assaulting his lips, never relenting. The only break he got for the next hour were the moments the two had pulled apart to take a much-needed breath before she struck his tongue once again. I just remembered, but what should I do with the other girls? Who? Shinano and Ryu, for example. I'm not that blind. I know they like me. Ryu announced that at the arena, and Shinano I can tell by how physical she gets. No one would just cling like she does to someone they didn't like, and that comment at the pub definitely showed her affections for me. Elise interrupted the make-out session and smiled. Then man up, Belle. So far it has been the ladies that came to you, but sometimes you gotta be more proactive and take the lead. So should I go ask Shinano and Ryu out? Not Lion. Hey. The Renard's eyes shot up in surprise, making Elise giggle. Sorry, what I meant is that with Lion we have to take a different approach. You're just doing it for your own entertainment, aren't you? Her smile widened at that and shrugged. Who knows? Maybe. But remember your competition with Lion. Whoever wins gets to request anything from the winner. That is a great opportunity to push her buttons and get her to be bolder. Then I'll convince her to make a big public confession. Aren't you taking this too far? Of course not. She needs to learn, grow out of her shell, and this is a great opportunity. Elise grabbed Belle's hand and guided him to the bed, where she pushed him down and eventually snuggled up to his chest. Belle. Yes. It just came to my mind, but when are you going to tell the other girls about your tales? That topic suddenly brought a smile to Belle's face as he kissed the redhead on the top of her forehead. Actually about that. I was going to talk to Take Mikazuchi and Amaterasu, but I intend to disclose it to everyone soon. It's only been a short while since I arrived in Orario. But with the reputation I quickly gained in the past month, I think I don't need to hide it anymore. Really? When? Hee, it's a surprise. Mao. That not FAMH tilde bell tilde, that's unfair tilde, never mind. I love you tilde. Her pout was interrupted when her lips were suddenly breached by Belle's needy kiss. Her complaint soon turned into an unadulterated moan as she professed her love for him. She could only go back to pouting when Belle interrupted the kiss once again. There is something I wanted to talk about to you, Elise. Seeing his suddenly serious look, she laid down on top of him and waited for him to speak, her chin gently resting on his chest. What should I do with Loki, Freya, and the people who turned their back on my familiar? Elise understood why he suddenly looked so serious and now distraught. It was, without a doubt, difficult for him. She tended to forget how young he was. She could almost feel the swirl of different emotions he kept hidden behind the mask that was his face, but his heart spoke clearly. Gazing at his eyes, she noticed how vulnerable he looked right now. Something he only showed her as he lowered his guard. Because he trusted her. Knowing that brought indescribable joy to the captain of the Estrella Familia, and she would do her best to live up to this responsibility. It was her duty as his partner after all. What do you want, Belle? What do you think is the best choice? Not the right or wrong choice, but the best one. To punish them? To take vengeance? To bring justice? Or curse them? Perhaps forgive them. The last suggestion suddenly triggered a flashback. Not a normal one. The memory was fragmented, only some parts played in his mind, with a large chunk of it being empty gaps. Give is A-S, remember. Belle, forgive them. Just as quick as it came, the memory vanished. Give them. Sorry, perhaps that is out of the question. And no, it's just. I suddenly remembered something when you said that. Though it's incomplete. I don't fully remember everything. It was just bits and pieces of Zeus telling me something about forgiveness. Well, I can't say I know what he said, nor interpret what he said, but I can tell you that forgiving them is a choice. Is it what I'm meant to do? Who knows? Do you want to forgive them? And how? Why? How? Why? The girl smiled solemnly and propped herself up. Yes. How and why? There are many ways to ask for forgiveness, as well as many reasons to do so. Some ask to be forgiven. Others will make up for it by paying some kind of tribute. Some others dedicate their life to make up for their mistakes. And why do they do that? Is it guilt? Or is it because it's the right choice? Perhaps it's neither, and instead it's because they made a promise and they intend to upkeep it. There are as many methods as there are reasons, but it all depends on what you want. The value and meaning of forgiveness are for you to interpret. For me to interpret. Yes, every concept we make up is something we give value to. We call the beasts of the dungeon monsters. But is it because of the horns and fangs? Or is it something else? Are they the only monsters out there in this world? The answer is no, at least to me. Here on the surface we have people that are just as monstrous, if not more, than those creatures from the dungeon. And why is that? Because they are ruthless, brutal, and have no ethical values. Kill for the fun of it. As you can see, we associate words with anything we believe to fall under that category. Like good and bad. Depending on different point of views, things may change. Some might see a certain action as bad, others think of it as a good thing. Why do you think Everless exists? And cults? Why do kingdoms clash? Because it's for the greater good, or so they see it in their eyes. And the same applies to justice. That caught Belle's attention even more. Did you know when Estrella recruited me and the other girls after me, one of the first questions she asked us was, "What is justice to you?" And so we all responded, with our own ideals and perception of justice. When our answers satisfied her requirements, she let us join. She accepted all of our opinions and stated that there was no right or wrong answer. It was for us to decide what belief to follow. As a matter of fact, when we asked her what justice is to her, she gave us quite the Different. Answer compared to us. And did you know? One of the biggest differences between Kagaya and Lion, which causes them to continuously butt heads, is their different ideals of justice. Lion is idealistic, where justice is meant to be fair to all, righteous and noble, bringing the light to darkness, delivering punishment to those who deserve it and save those in need. Everyone, no exception made. But Kagaya is more realistic. She agrees that it is a noble and righteous path, but we cannot save everyone. The need of the many often outweighs the need of the few. According to her, we need to learn how to make sacrifices, as sometimes we need to abandon 10 to save 100. So let me ask you, Belle, what is justice to you? Belle thought about it for a while before his eyes found the green ones of his lover. There was a time where I would have agreed with Ryu. As a hero, anyone who asks for help should be given help. But now, I can't help but think that some people don't deserve it. Reality isn't as forgiving. Orario's betrayal showed that. I always believed that what I did for others would come around. But that, clearly, is not always the case. That is true. But let me tell you, Belle, no matter what you think of justice and of forgiveness, it doesn't matter what others think. It is your own belief. Whether or not you intend to let it go and forgive them is completely up to you. I'm sure that whatever Zeus said was an important lesson, so you should think about it when you do get the chance. But remember, the only thing that is important, no matter what interpretation you take up, is that it's true as long as you truly believe in it with all your heart. And I will respect it. I made a promise after all. No matter who stands in your way, even if the whole world and even the heavens come against you, I will always be by your side. Belle blinked for a moment, too stunned by Elise, who shone brighter than ever before in his eyes. His hands then gently traced her face and cupped her cheeks before bringing her down. Elise let him guide her until their foreheads were leaning against each other, and Belle enveloped her in a warm embrace. Thank you, Elise. Belle, please remember that you can't do everything alone. No one can. Before it was just you and Zeus, but now you have me, Tsubaki, Kagaya, Artoria, Lion and Shinano. The entirety of the Estrella Familia will also back you up, just like the Amaterasu Familia. Take Mikazuchi and his Familia, as well as the girls of the hostess. The Miss and Baphomet are also there as well. You are here for all of us, just like we are for you. We rely on you like you should on us. So, don't shoulder everything by yourself. I'm here to be your supporting pillar, as are the others. So when you need help, just ask. There is nothing wrong with asking for help, not even for a hero. Elise watched as the most radiant smile ever bloomed on Belle's face as his hug tightened. Thank you, Elise. Truly, you are a shining star. The brightest of them all, the one who guides me and the one I love the most. I could not be happier to have you by my side. Goo. Belle, you're making it extremely hard to hold back. I love you a lot. So much that I don't know how to show it to you. But in more of those sweet words, and at this rate, I'll explode. We'll be having cubs by the end of this year if you keep it up. Darling Tilda, you know how you said that I should think about Zeus' words. I get the feeling you won't let me today. Oh, you are very right. You have only yourself to blame for this. You have no idea how hard it was to hold myself back. You were so dashing, so handsome, so damn cute and sexy. Lowering herself, she straddled him, capturing his lips while her hands went to fondle his ears and abs. Within seconds, their clothes had flown off and the two were stark naked. In bed, Elise suddenly yelped when Belle grabbed her and flipped over their position. Belle, as if you're one to talk. Your beautiful body and your cute expressions. Your giggles were irresistibly adorable too. Those sultry looks and that smirk when you knew you were clearly riling me up didn't help at all. Tilda, then perhaps we both should stop holding back for today. Make up for all the pent-up feelings. So come and ravage me, love. I don't know why. I mean, it could be growth in your case, but for me to have such a growth spurt seems weird. Who knows, maybe it's your semen. That has an effect on women. Oh, Lion will be so happy to hear that. She's always been very sensitive about her breast size. With this, you might be able to give her a nice boost. Kyun. Elise, please stop. Hee hee, sorry. Let's go join the others. I'll wait before that. I need to tell you something about the status update I got yesterday. And yes, it's about the skill that I developed. She was in for a pleasant surprise. His smile yet embarrassed blush was plenty. Evidence of that. All right, let's hear it. There you are, you two. Laying Elise down on the seat next to Astrea's, Bell took his own place by Taika Mikazuchi. He clearly noticed the knowing smirk he got from Baphomet, causing him to blush brightly. There was no doubt she was aware of what he and Elise did. Ladies and gents, welcome back to this exciting tournament. Ivory announced excitedly as the crowd settled down. Please give us a moment. Momentarily, we will start sorting out the contestants for the next round. While initially the plan was to have all 4 matches today, unfortunately, the second half has been moved to tomorrow due to complications within the city. While Ivory continued talking, Astrea and Loki turned to Ganesha with a raised eyebrow. Complications. Possible Everless movement. That alerted the various members in the room. It was well known how dangerous that organization was. Hearing that there was a possibility of them taking action made Astrea and Loki wonder how to respond to a possible raid. It honestly wasn't surprising, considering how important and populated Orario was at the moment. But let us not worry. Now we will have the guild members sort out the matches. So bear with me, people. As soon as he finished, Aina entered the room along with Rose. When the 8 remaining competitors walked up to them, Rose's nose immediately began subtly sniffing the air. Eyes landed on Belle, and just a second later she began blushing furiously, turning away to avoid his gaze. What's wrong, Rose? Aina. It's nothing. Aina, though, tilted her head in confusion as she blushed and began rubbing her thighs together. What the heck is with this guy? This smell, it's without a doubt, and it's so strong. Coo, what a beast of a man. She could feel herself warm up and her breath hitch briefly before she began panting. But, being the professional she was, she composed herself and held the box with the numbers inside. Aina began explaining the rules once again before guiding them to the box. Each member picked their number before Belle approached the werewolf. She gulped as he got closer and the musk reached her nose, stronger than ever. Belle fished for the last piece of paper, not noticing the lustful look in her eyes as she stared at his neck, the marks of Elise's hickeys slightly showing. Then she made the mistake of taking a sniff in his close proximity. Her body was set on fire and she couldn't tear her eyes away from his rubellite orbs. It was getting harder and harder to ignore the heat in her core. Her breath, so labored, little puffs of steam escaped her lips with every pant. What is wrong with me? All right, now, unlike the first round, we will announce the first match straight away. And, according to the numbers picked out, the first match is between AIS Wallenstein and John Kratos. Don't worry, however, the match won't start for quite a while because, though on short notice, the guild wished to make the battle more exciting by adding more elements to the arena, such as obstacles and traps of the sort. While all that went down, Rose stood behind trying to calm herself down, squeaking when someone suddenly hugged her from behind. Snapping her head to the side, she let out a sigh as she saw Elise leaning her head on her shoulder. Geez, Elise, you scared me. Did I now? Yes, you did. I thought you couldn't walk. Oh, that was Belle's fault. But I recovered enough to walk. That's when she noticed the same scent on Elise that was on Belle's. I should go now. I know what you were thinking. The red-haired wolf froze as her breath hitched. It was hard to miss how you looked at my Belle, the way you rubbed your thighs, and panted, like an animal in heat. Rose felt herself blushing redder and redder. You're quite the pervert with an interesting fetish. You were getting off just to his scent, weren't you? One sniff and it got you all hot and bothered. I could see how you, lustfully, stared at my boyfriend, all horny for him, looking ready to get on your knees and beg for him. Elise, that's no dash. You know, I am always looking for possible candidates to add to our polyamory. And you fit everything I need. I know you very well. I trust you and you are nothing short of gorgeous. I would love to welcome you to the group. All you have to do is admit it and I would be willing to get you a little date with him. Maybe develop it into something more. She began gently gripping the wolf's waist, moving her hand over her stomach and thigh. Imagine his firm hands groping you all over. She began whispering into her ear. I also happen to hear from other guild members that you are interested in being a mother. Of course you won't just settle with anyone. He must be dependable, noble, strong, and loving. Belle is all of that and more. And it just so happens that Belle has a really naughty thing for impregnating girls. Matter of fact, just yesterday I begged Belle to plant a baby in me. When I told him that, it turned him on so much he fucked me until I fainted. Now I can't afford to get pregnant, but you're no adventurer. You want children and a strong mate. Belle could just fuck you morning to night for days to come if you want. But Belle is a Renard. There is no way it would work between us. Belle is special for many reasons, including his special method to be able to cross breed. Only the goddess are safe, and that's only from getting pregnant, not ravaged. And no way. It's up to you to believe it or not. The choice is yours, but I could ask him to breed. Utilda, she whispered sweetly in her ear, the last part sending a shiver down the guild staff back. Elise saw her chest heave and knew her plan worked. Letting go of her, she began walking away when suddenly someone grabbed her wrist. A heavily panting Rose blushed as she looked down at the ground. Is the offer still up? Are you admitting that you were horny for Belle? Yes. Want me to set a date for you? Why, yes. Want him to pound you until you find yourself carrying a cub. There was a pause, but with a very quiet voice she answered, while the captain of the Astraea Familia smiled. Yes. Tilda. Elise's smirk widened as she roped another member into the polyamory. Are you okay, Rose? You were all red even before. I'm fine. Aina, however, didn't look convinced. She frowned at her friend as she clearly hid something from her. Come on, Rose. We've been friends forever. Please, if you have problems, just tell me. Aye, ha. All right. I got a date. You did? Yeah. Elise offered me a date with Belle. If the conversation we had was anything to go by, she will let me get in a committed relationship with him, even allowing me to have a child with Belle. To say she was shocked was an understatement. But can you have a child with a Renard? Apparently he can. Or so Elise said. So all the rumors are true. There had many rumors of Belle having multiple girlfriends. Initially Aina didn't believe it, as despite having known him for a short time, she didn't think Belle was a womanizer who picked up women left and right. Of course she had heard how Artoria declared that Belle was theirs, implying that there were multiple members. But hearing that from Rose confirmed that he did indeed have a little harem of his. But seeing how Rose acted, and it was Elise who gave the invite, suggested it wasn't being done behind anyone's back. And you're okay with sharing? Yeah, I am. I haven't really spoken to Belle, which is why it is a strange arrangement, but I want to give it a try. I see. They are ready. By noon Orario will be greeted with a nice present. Excellently done. Let us see how effective this little experiment of ours is. Once more the two entities schemed in the dark of the dungeon. Behind them, hundreds of different people were being experimented, cruelly making them suffer as they tested different theories out, all with the goals of making more powerful monsters. Katsuki-san. Belle turned around and saw the young member of the Amaterasu Familia running up to him, with 4 people following by his side. Tanjiro-san. Good morning. Belle took notice of the people by his side. A person with an incredibly muscly build that would put many to shame. His upper body was bare while wearing a hakama, fastened by a thick belt of fluffy brown deer fur and sandals. He dual-wielded a pair of saw-bladed katanas and wore a boar mask. Next to him was a boy just as tall as the boar man and Tanjiro. He was clothed in a golden, hairy and brown set of jacket and pants. His hair and eyes were just as gold as his hairy, and a white katana rested on his left hip. Behind them were 2 girls, one of them of which he had seen before. Nezuko, Tanjiro's sister according to Amaterasu. She had black hair ending with orange tips and wore a kimono, the same pink of her eyes. Next to her, wearing a blue uniform similar to that of the other 3 but with a skirt, was a girl with black hair tied in a side ponytail. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, Tanjiro-san. I wanted to present to you my friend's sister and girlfriend. Going in order they are Inosuke, Zenitsu, Nezuko, and Kanao. They are all level 4 by the way. Other than the boar-headed Inosuke, they all gave him short bow, which Bell returned. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Nezuko's eyes instantly went to his tail, slowly trying to reach out for it before Tanjiro stopped her. Nezuko, that's rude. I'm so sorry about her. Sorry, they looked so fluffy that I unknowingly tried to touch them. It's okay, but I would prefer if you didn't try touching my tail. Normally I only allow those close to me to touch it. He could only laugh awkwardly as she pouted. I see you've already been introduced. Amaterasu walked up to them, to which the members all bowed, even Inosuke this time. Already getting along, though I wonder for how long. I don't think Zenitsu will. Like you. Very much after he discovers about your little group. Bell knew exactly to what she was referring to and gulped. What do you mean, Kamisama? Katsuka-san seems like a very kind person. Just like Tanjiro. It's not about that. What should I do, Bell? Should I tell him? Bell shook his head, trying to stop her, but the goddess wanted to have her own share of fun. With a smirk, she turned to the blonde boy. Did you know that Bell here has multiple girlfriends? Like Tengen has 3 wives. Now, how many did you have, Bell? Was it 5? 6? Ah no, it was 7. It's 4, Amaterasu-sama. You might as well include the other 3 as your girlfriends with how clingy they get with you. Zenitsu had visibly frozen. His hands got restlessly twitchy, trying his hardest to hold back. His head cranked around to stare at Bell with a look that promised a painful death. Zenitsu wasn't aware of that due to having been dragged away by Inosuke, who wanted to go the dungeon. That's fine. Yes, that's fine. No offense, but I'm sure they're just your average girls. No. Beauty would be okay with being in a hair dash. There you are, darling Tilda. Bell had no time to react as Elise suddenly jumped on his back. Zenitsu froze once. Again, seeing who one of his girlfriends was. Your Katsuka-san's girlfriend. Yup, me, Tsubaki, Kagaya, and Artoria are. And as Amaterasu-sama said, you might as well count Shinano, Akagi, and Lion in it. Are also Bell. I just roped in Rose as well. You know that cute red-haired wolf that works at the guild. She wants a date with you. And remember, we need to get Estrella to join as well. Bell paled as she simply brought more girls in. Oh, you want to add Estrella? That's right, Amaterasu-sama. I'm working on it right now, but please don't tell. Huh. I won't. I'm sure it will be a pleasant surprise for her. Zenitsu felt like his world was crumbling right in front of him. This is not fair. This is not fair. Why do you get all the girls? And how the hell did you get to have not one but multiple women to love you? Do you even realize that Elise is world-class beauty that many courted before and failed? What the hell is this situation? This is just impossible. Here I am single and alone. Leave some for you fellow men. Holding him down, Tanjiro and Inosuke excused themselves, dragging him away from the group, followed by the girls, leaving only Amaterasu and Elise with Bell. Oh, so the group is growing by the day, I see. So how many more do you want to add, Bell? How many goddesses are at risk now? Kyun, please stop, Tilda. The arena was no longer a simple fighting space comprising of only sand. It now had pillars and obstacles scattered around. Trees and small dilapidated buildings like those you'd expect to see in the abandoned area of Orario were erected on field as well. On top of the walls surrounding the arena, along the perimeter, weird devices had been set up from the guild, which emitted a soft glow. Thanks for waiting, everyone. As you can see, the guild and my familiar worked hard and fast to remodel the arena, also considering the danger of first-class adventurers fighting and the nearly terrible accident the day before. We decided to take precautions. To our luck, we have the ingenious Perseus with us, the greatest inventor on Gakkai. Thanks to her fast work, she made these devices which will deploy a protective dome over the arena. Like the spell some mags may have, it will block both physical and magical attacks. Now, don't worry, as the barrier is invisible, so it won't impede visibility, but beware, this new magic item is still in test trial. Let us hope it holds up against level 5 attacks. The cheers rang out across the Colosseum as Ibri made his way onto the elevated stage. AIS. And Kratos, in the meantime, were making their way down to the arena right as Ibri announced the new edition of the arena. As he finished, they got to their positions and unsheathed their weapons. AIS drew desperate while Kratos grabbed his green axe. That is a pseudo-divine weapon, the Leviathan axe. Belle looked at the buff man curiously, wondering how AIS would fare against it. The blonde knight, however, didn't seem deterred by her opponent. Now then, let today's first match begin. As soon as it started, the two closed the distance, clashing furiously with their blades. With extreme poise and skill, AIS danced around the larger man as he swung his axe. For each attack she deflected, AIS would deliver 3 more, nipping at his thick skin. Drops of blood began staining his body as the small cuts pierced into his arms. It had been only 5 minutes, but it looked like the Sword Princess was already tipping the battle in her favor. Or she would have if he was a regular person. But Kratos was a seasoned warrior, and he wasn't going to just fall like that. With his battle-hardened senses, he blocked the next few attacks, letting some land and scratch on purpose before counter-attacking. The slash from the axe sliced across Ai's left shoulder, removing the armored pad and leaving a deep gash in the joint. The girl winced but remained nearly unfazed despite the blood dripping down her injury. Jumping back, she placed some distance between them to recover. Taking a glance to the bleeding arm, she quickly assessed how serious it was before looking back at Kratos with a stoic gaze. Unleashing her green gale, she prepared to fight again. Kratos knew once he saw the winds that the real battle was only about to begin. Putting the axe away, he grasped his twin blades and brought them forwards, letting the chain that linked them fall to the ground and rattle menacingly. Belle watched the match with excitement before looking around the Colosseum. The building was massive, with rows upon rows of people spectating. But he noticed how there were far more civilians than fighters. Considering the nature of the match, he also expected to see more adventurers. Why aren't there more adventurers? Wouldn't the matches be beneficial to adventurers? Thing is, Belle, you are probably looking at 90% of the adventurers in Orario. What? Orario has about a population of 1.5 million. Out of them, only about 400,000 people belong to familiars, with about half of them not being adventurers, as they are part of medical, business, or blacksmith's familiar. And this Colosseum can contain about 500,000 spectators, a third of Orario's population. Right now, the people you see here are all foreign warriors or civilians, with the citizens of Orario watching from public places since Uranos permitted the use of divine mirrors. Really? I thought they would have been a lot more adventurers. They used to be. Back when Zeus and Hera were still here, they used to be as many as 10 times the adventurers. Since their defeat, the numbers dropped and haven't recovered. The adventurers are increasing, but very slowly. Not only that, but the quality is also worse than before when it comes to skills, with many more dying in the dungeon compared to before. We have no level 8s or 9s after all. Nor do we have a dozen level 7s or even 50 or so level 6s like we used to 15 years ago. Ara, you say that as if you have no confidence in my captain. He is at the peak of level 7. He will soon reach level 8. That I can assure you. Mikazuchi, however, didn't seem satisfied. Let's be honest, Freya. No matter how much you hate and loathe the Zeus and Hera familiar, you have to recognize that your captain, despite being at the peak of level 7, wouldn't have been able to defeat any of the average level 7s of those familiars. They were the true talents and prodigies. That much I have to agree to. Each one of them was a monster. Particularly the captains, vice-captains, and that duo, Silence and Gluttony. 30 minutes passed since things got heated, and neither of them looked ready to give up. With a quick flick, AIS deflected the blade, sending it flying into the sky. But a tug on the chain, and just as fast as it came flying, the blade was pulled back into Kratos' hand. AIS was panting lightly as she stood across from the bulking man. Like her, his face was stoic, but his breathing pattern betrayed his calm nature. He was by no means tired, but he was quite worked up. His right hand held the chain and slowly spun the blade. The circular motion grazed the ground, sending dust flying. No matter what she did, she couldn't find any kind of opening or weakness. AIS had half expected this to happen, but it was still frustrating for it to happen, and a direct confrontation was out of the question. Just by looking at the man's body, that was 3 times as big as hers, anyone could tell that she'd lose. Since a contest of strength was not an option, she could only rely on her stamina and speed to whittle down at his endurance. Hiding behind the pillar, she avoided the flying blades being tossed at her. But before she could think of a solution, Kratos suddenly activated his Spartan rage and red lightning act over his skin. With his enhanced skin, he tackled the pillar with his shoulder and toppled it. It was just in time that she jumped away, barely dodging the collapsing structure. She had little time to relax, though, as the Spartan warrior was instantly on her. With the technique of her father, the blonde knight immediately responded to the onslaught of attacks with perfectly timed blocks and parries. Despite that, she knew that there was no chance of winning were she to draw this on for any longer, clearly evident as she began losing her ground. With no choice left, she decided to bet everything on one final attack. That is when something began tingling on her back. Instincts told her to trust that feeling, and though doubtful initially, her instincts were what made her survive so far. So, she took the only path available to her. It's looking bad for AIS-san. Will she really lose? An orange-haired elf spoke with clear worry in her voice. No way. My AIS-tan would never lose. Face it, Loki, her defeat is just a matter of time. The red-haired goddess simply growled as she glanced back at Eris. Just then, Lefia shot up from her seat with wide eyes. There are 3 Miss Hours. Everyone's attention was brought back to the arena. In the time they looked away, 3 copies of AIS had appeared on the battlefield, and Kratos was now being charged from all directions. The look of confusion was evident on the ancient warrior's face, but he didn't hesitate to slash at the one in front of him. To everyone's surprise, however, AIS dissipated into wisps of air as if he had just slashed through the wind. Are they just for distraction? Are they not physical? As if to answer the Spartan's question, the 2 knights behind him slashed across his back. The searing pain was very much real, but he instantly noticed that it was not the familiar feeling of cold steel burning his flesh. Instead, it was a dry wind like a gale tearing through his skin. With a swipe of his chained blades, he destroyed the 2 remaining clones. As they died, however, the clones exploded and a green mist blanketed the arena. Emerging from behind, with Lil Rafaga charged, AIS hit Kratos with her most powerful attack. He barely blocked in time, but the surprise didn't leave him time to prepare and was ultimately overpowered. The match ended as AIS stopped short of his neck. What a comeback. The Sword Princess wins. You held back. Kratos turned to the Sword Princess as they silently made their way back. I did not hold back, but I have misjudged your ability. However, don't let this diminish your accomplishment today. You fought valiantly. You may not be aware of it, but you have shown me something of new from which I too have learnt. I let my guard down and lost. That's all there is to it. In a real fight, it would have been me who died, not you. That is why this victory is something you earned. With a slight smile, AIS felt encouraged to strive to become even stronger. Thank you. No need. I just hope my boy has learnt from this match just like you and I both did. While the crowd and the Loki familiar went crazy over the sudden development, Bell's ears twitched as he was the first to sense something of wrong. Weird wisps of magic were going haywire around him. The normally calm ley lines were fluctuating crazily, setting off the alarm in the Renard's head. Bell, what's the matter? Elise and the rest of the girlfriends turned to Bell as Takumi Kazuchi voiced his worry over Bell's serious gaze. No, it's just th. Before he could finish, however, an explosion shook the Colosseum. The cheers died as everyone went quiet. Just then a member of the Ganesha familia came running in, desperately looking for his god. The guard was panicking as he arrived to report. Philip, what's going on? It's an emergency. Monsters have sprouted out of the ground and are now invading the streets. Everyone was shocked by the news, not expecting Evelys to make a move so soon. What of the people? There are dozens of civilians on the streets. The adventurers that were present have engaged the monsters but are being pushed back. Finn, like the strategist he was, immediately began asking questions to analyze the situation. Though most adventurers were level 1 and 2, to hear that they were being pushed back did confuse the captain of the Loki familiar. They are being pushed back. Just how many monsters are there and what kind? 100 or so, possibly more. The main issue right now is that we don't know what kind of monsters they are. We have never seen them before. That only served to confuse the adventurers more, but Elise was not one to be deterred by the unknown. Well, that doesn't matter. People are in danger, so all we can do is jump down there and help. Everyone looked at Elise and felt themselves being infected by her bright smile. The lass is right, Finn. Enough chit-chat, let's go crush them. Joining the dwarf with cheers were the rest of the Loki familiar. Very well. Ganesha-sama, please leave the streets to us. Loki, Astrea, Amaterasu, and Takemikazuchi familiar rushed out of the gates, while Ganesha, with the help of Baphomet, set a defensive perimeter around the Colosseum. The circular structure was rapidly designated as a safe area to which the civilians were brought to, while any adventurer or warrior that could fight joined the battle outside. What the hell are those? Beat was staring at the massive green snake-like monsters that invaded the city streets. Dozens of people had drawn their weapons and were fighting back, but with little success. Welp, let us join them. Tiona, wait, you idiot. The Amazon jumped down and punched one of the scaly monsters with a powerful blow, but unlike what anyone expected, the monster was completely unscathed. Tiona, however, flinched as she felt her arm's bone rattle. It felt like an unblessed person trying to punch a steel plate. The dumb Amazon couldn't hurt them. The green monster, however, was now locked onto the level 6 adventurer, Tiona-san. In an attempt to help her, Lefia began chanting her spell. That's when Belle noticed that many of the green monsters nearby focused their attention on the elf. They can detect magic, and they prioritize them over other enemies. In that case, to everyone's surprise, Belle jumped forwards into the fray, his tail glowing as he charged a spell. All the snakes snapped their attention to the Renard as he rushed past them, away from all the civilians. Belle, use this chance that Belsan provided us and evacuate all civilians. The rest hunt the snakes down. While Loki and Astrea familiar spread out, the gods soon joined the remaining people just outside the gates, curiously wanting to see what was going. Seeing them, however, Yuzui couldn't help but worry they'd be vulnerable. What of the gods? Leave them to me. Quinella walked with the same elegance she spoke with, but the deadliness was not missed, as she killed one of the green beasts with a single slap. Me and Ganesha familiar will defend the Colosseum along with the gods and the people inside. The rest of Mai and the other familiars currently present should go aid Loki and Astrea. Hearing that the level 7 would be defending the Colosseum reassured the children of the gods. As the captain of the Amaterasu familiar, I will forever be grateful that you protected our lady. You have my word, Tomo. The hostess staff and the various familiars all began hunting down the monsters, leaving the gods with the Ganesha familiar and Quinella to protect them. What they didn't expect was to see the Freya familiar join the battle, leaving their goddess unprotected. You actually sent out your familiar for this. Of course, I get to participate and make people see that I am helping them. And I don't need to worry for my safety since you're here. Or perhaps you will let me die. But I wonder how that will look to the others. Baphomet hissed as Freya spoke, taking the opportunity to raise her reputation while taking advantage of other people. Mark my words, Freya, you will get what you deserve. Looking behind himself, Bell saw the 20 snakes pursuing him. He was going to keep leading them around when he spotted 2 children cowering in a corner as one of the scaly monsters was slowly approaching them, ready to crush them within its maws. Oh no! In a split second, Bell changed his plans and jumped up with all his strength. Many people, adventurers and civilians from the safety of their homes, watched as the Renard shot into the sky, and with a spin he unleashed a snowflake that froze and shattered all the pursuing monsters into shards of ice. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he immediately pushed his body forwards and smashed into the monster with a punch that crushed its face. The 2 children were none other than Fina and Rai, who were trembling as the maws of the monster fell limp, and Bell sighed in relief. On the verge of tears, the two launched themselves at Belle and tightly hugged him. Belle-san. The Renard smiled and held them in his arms, drawing circles on their back. With gentle movements he reassured the terrified children. It's okay. The moment, however, was interrupted from the screeching of a monster. Grabbing the two children one under each arm, Belle jumped up. Hang on tight. Belle dodged and weaved through the sea of green snakes attacking him, never letting go of the two orphans. Just about as one of them was about to catch up, a familiar voice shouted at him. Katsuki-san, duck. Doing as instructed, a blade of water slashed through the monster, just missing the tip of the Renard's perked up ears. Tanjiro skid to a stop and cut down all the approaching monsters in 3 swift slashes. The others soon joined as well, with Zenitsu cutting through one of the snakes that sprouted from the ground. Another one got tore apart by Inosuke, followed by Nezuko, who with Kanao's assistance stopped one of the snakes dead in its tracks. As it aimed for Belle. Leave these to us, Katsuki-san. Get the children to safety. We'll cover you. Thanks, Zenitsu. Belle resumed his way to the Colosseum while the group of demon slayers took care of the monsters. See, Zenitsu. He's a good guy. I know that, Nezuko. Probably the only guy who is as nice as Tanjiro, but I still can't get over the fact that he has multiple beautiful girlfriends, including the princess. Yeah, no, I can't forgive him for that. The looks of disappointment on their faces was obvious as Zenitsu kept whining, trying to justify himself. Really? This again? Are women all you think about? Yeah. Get everyone inside. Shakti was guarding the entrance to the Colosseum alongside her and Baphomet. Familiar. When Belle suddenly arrived with 2 children under each one of his arms. Belle. Shakti-san, please take care of these children. Handing the children to a member of the Ganesha familia, she was going to ask if he could help with the evacuation when a rumbling was followed by an explosion in the distance. That's where Tanjiro and the others were. Sorry, Shakti, but I'll head there for now. Please, send others to help us as soon as possible. Don't worry, go ahead. Just like that, Belle was once again gone, leaving Shakti to deal with the crowds of people looking for refuge. What the hell is that? Inosuke landed on the roof of a building with a heavy thump, crushing the tiles. Beneath him, in front of him, was a massive monster that had a plant-like body, but the upper half was that of a woman. Tanjiro and Zenitsu landed right next to him, pushed back by the impressive strength of the new monster. It was then that the snakes opened their heads and bloomed into flowers, discovering that they weren't in fact snakes but plants. What do we do? Nothing we did had any effect on it. It keeps regenerating, just like the demons. It's that nightmare all over again. We're going to die. No, I still haven't married. Calm down, Zenitsu. It's a monster and all monsters have magic stone. All we have to do is find it and then cut it. But we tried that already. The magic stone isn't in its chest. We just gotta keep trying. Inosuke puffed his chest and pointed its swords to the monster. Gonpanchiko is right. It's Tanjiro. Stop being a meanie to Onii-chan. While they were bickering, the woman roared and charged towards them. Kanao, being the first to notice, warned the group of the incoming danger. Watch out. But before the irregular could make it 1 more inch forwards, a snowflake smashed into its side. The monster went tumbling, shrieking in pain as the spell froze its flesh and tore it apart. Looking up, Tanjiro spotted the Renard sitting on the rooftop. Katsuki-san, are you okay? Belle looked at them with a tilt of his head, worried that they had been injured. Yeah, but we've been having problems with this monster. It is strong, fast, and has a self-regeneration ability. We tried going for the magic stone, but we can't seem to find it. Looking at the monster, Belle, with his special sight, noticed that the magic stone appeared to be moving inside of its body, its traces vanishing and reappearing, making it impossible to pinpoint its location. Don't worry, I have a solution, but I will need you to cover me for a while. Zenitsu wanted nothing more to slay the monster, but he looked unsure of his plan. Sure, but how will you find the magic stone? I don't plan to search for it. What's the situation right now? Finn had just returned with the rest of the adventurers just as Shakti finished evacuating the civilians. The civilians have been moved inside the Colosseum while everyone who was combat ready went out to hunt the monsters. Bell returned a short while ago but soon took off to investigate a particularly loud explosion. He asked for reinforcements as soon as possible, so I was preparing to go support him. All right, me and my familiar will follow you. We don't know what to expect with Everless behind it all. Shakti was about to nod when a bright blue beam ripped through the sky. The sky then detonated, turning into a massive blue ball of magical fire. It was high above the city, at a relatively safe distance, but the shockwave sent everyone below level 3, tumbling to the ground and shattered every window in the city. The once cloudy sky was now left with a large gaping hole that allowed the light of the sun to shine down on Orario. What in the name of Loki was that? A black object suddenly fell from the sky, landing with a nasty crunch next to Finn. What the? Upon closer inspection, he noticed that it was a bird. Holy cow. Look at it. It's been burnt to a crisp. Said bird had been carbonized by the extreme heat produced by the magical explosion. The more terrifying part, which they weren't aware of, was the fact that under the conditions of the heavily pressurized magical explosion, the entire area around the explosion became deadly. Even if you were to survive the explosion, and the shockwave, being within 100 meters, would have been catastrophic. The area around the explosion had been drained of oxygen and filled with carbon monoxide, which would have left no escape to anyone who was presently too close and had to breath, that is. That was probably Bell's doing. Finn looked at Elise flabbergasted. Are you sure? Yup, though weaker, it is the same magic spell he used when he saved us from the irregular monster on the expedition. Wait, the same thing that caused the whole of Orario to shake a couple of days ago? Yup, the very same one. Looking back, Finn could only think of one thing. What tremendous firepower. The Takemikazuchi, Loki, Ganesha, Astrea, and Amaterasu familiar behind them all looked to the sky with shocked faces, just like everyone else in the stands above them. None of them had ever seen such a destructive power. All participating familiars, having witnessed the true strength of the Renard, knew now not to take Bell lightly, more so than before. Knowing that the person behind the ever-loving and kind smile could accomplish such a tremendous act sent a shiver down everyone's back. Good thing I held back. Bell was observing his handiwork before turning back to see if Tanjiro and the others were okay. As he had expected, Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Kanao were left wordless, still staring at the hole in the sky. Inosuke and Zenitsu, however, were a completely different story. Zenitsu was panicking, trembling in fear as he started screaming incoherently about his impending death. Inosuke, in the meantime, was overflowing with excitement, demanding to know and be taught how to do that. For the next hour, Bell did his best to explain how that wasn't possible, since it was a spell he had been born with as far as he knew, but it seemed to him like everything he said went into one ear and out of the other one. He had long given up on Zenitsu, deciding to grab him and drag him back while the other three silently followed. You did more damage in broken windows than the monster and adventurers did in any kind of destroyed property. I have to say I'm impressed, Bell. The Renard sheepishly looked down as Aina listed the damage report to the now gathered familiars. Elise was giggling like crazy as she straddled Bell, much to his embarrassment. The others, however, had to agree that such a feat was indeed impressive and congratulated him, adding to his shame. But all jokes aside, a city's worth of broken windows is better than even a single life being lost in the attack, so cheer up. If it weren't for you, who knows how many people could have died, including the children you rescued, so don't worry about it, the guild will deal with that. But it's my fault. Don't worry about it. As I said, it wasn't your fault, and you have been forgiven for all the shattered glass. He couldn't help but wince at that. I have to say, that is quite the impressive spell, Katsuka-san. Reveria's comment brought his attention to her bright jade eyes. To hear such a compliment from one of the greatest, if not the greatest, mage of all times was quite the achievement in his mind. Thank you. She's right, you know. Man, that massive hole you punched in the sky was amazing. You could say you changed the weather with a single spell. Oh, What's your alias? Going to be? Wheat changer. Weather king. But I think that fluffy Renard suits you. Better. Absolutely not. Bell vehemently denied the last one. He refused to be called that even if it was a cute Amazon. Tiona, enough of your jokes. A bonk on the head followed by an indignant yelp silenced the overly bubbly girl. Much to his relief. He liked Tiona, but sometimes she could be a bit hard to handle. Luckily, Tyon was there for that. I am Ganesha. Well, leaving young Bell's matter aside, I believe it's best if we continue the tournament. Just like that. Loki looked skeptical, but Ganesha nodded resolutely. That's right. We'll take a few days to repair the city and calm everyone down. Then we'll resume. It's best not to disseminate any panic amongst the people. I agree with Ganesha. Finn spoke up before explaining his reasoning. We all know what Everless is capable of. This attack could be a potential indication that they are beginning to move once again. If their plans are anything to go by, then I say we can expect as big as an attack as that one 7 years ago. Everless is dangerous, and it has a vast arsenal of unknowns no one here has ever seen before. We can't expect anything, since surprises is something that Everless has always exceeded at. But this appeared to be more of a trial than an actual attack. So there is a good chance they won't make any more moves for weeks, if not months. And instead of spreading chaos by telling everyone of their movement, it is better if we keep this under wraps and pretend it wasn't anything of serious, let things die down and quietly investigate. Everless will surely strike again, but by then we'll have gotten more precise information from which we can plan on how to move forward and counter them. Exactly as Finn said, that is why the tournament should resume in approximately 5 days. Maximum, sooner if we can. Until then, rest. With that announcement, Ganesha bid farewell and left alongside Shakti and RD. With nothing to do, most of the familiars left as well, leaving only the hostess, Amaterasu, Astrea, and Takemikazuchi familiar. Aside from them, Tsubaki and Artoria had also decided to stay behind. How about heading to the hostess? Why not? You don't mind, do you, MIA? The dwarf grinned, hearing the potential of a large group of customers. Why not Takemikazuchi? While Bell sat with Takemikazuchi, Amaterasu, and Astrea familiar, Elise and the girlfriends, plus the potential new members, decided to sit at their own table to have a girls' talk. Bell's attention in the meantime had been snatched by Tanjiro and his group, who had begun telling him their story and how they came to join the Demon Slayers. That is how Nezuko became a demon. Tanjiro's story had begun with him going to the village to sell coal, only to return the day after to a bloody home. His mother, sisters, and brothers mercilessly slaughtered in their home. The walls and floors were stained in red, and Nezuko, the only surviving member, was lying motionless in the snow. I picked her up and ran down the mountain, hoping to get help. But before I could reach the village, I ran into Tomioka-san here. Said man was like the sword princess, stoic like a stone, but looking at Tanjiro, the Renard could spot a hint of shame as his appearance was mentioned. I have to admit it was not my greatest introduction. From there, Bell learnt how he fought against Gyu. The fight made the pillar see the potential in Tanjiro, from which he was pointed to Urokodaki, an ex-water pillar who trained the red head boy. Soon after, Tanjiro joined the final selection exam, where for 7 days he fought and avenged Urokodaki's 13 disciples. Bell was shocked to learn how gruesome and cruel the demons were, but was even more surprised by Tanjiro's sympathy and the tragic backstories that led to the people becoming demons. Despite all their cruelty, Tanjiro always forgave them, hating and never forgiving only the one responsible for this whole mess, Kibutsuji Musen, who still lived to this day. Tanjiro then told him of his journey, starting with his first mission in a small town, where young women mysteriously vanished. The truth was that they were kidnapped and devoured until Tanjiro with Nezuko slayed the demon. When asked about Musen, however, he found out that the demons were controlled by the man and couldn't reveal anything, and just mentioning their name would result in their death. It was through that experience, seeing others suffer like he did, that gave birth to an uncontainable rage that now stirs in Tanjiro. He vowed he would never forgive him for all the deaths and suffering he caused, and that he would put an end to it all. And as fate would have it, his next mission brought him to Tokyo. For the country. Bumpkin. That Tanjiro was. The place left him uncomfortable and overwhelmed. But what really was significant about that event was that on that day he met the man himself, Kibutsuji. Muzan. Pretending to be a human with a family, he swiftly scratched a passerby, turning him into a demon and using him as a distraction to leave. Hearing that, just like Tanjiro, horrified Bell, with its sheer cruelty. That's how I first met Tamayo. Tamayo. Tanjiro nodded with a somber look, which Nezuko too shared. She was a demon that, like Nezuko, had escaped Muzan's control. She was an incredible doctor who made many different medicines, including the one that cured Nezuko, and turned her back human. Unfortunately, in the final battle, she sacrificed herself to weaken Muzan. But it was in vain, while we won the war and the battle, completely eradicating demons in the Far East, we failed our task. Muzan got away and he continues to exist to this day. Now he has started spreading demons again. That day we lost many members and it is a tragic moment that will forever be remembered by the Demon Slayer Corps. Deciding not to dwell on the sad moment, Tanjiro resumed his story, explaining how Tamayo helped him out and he eventually fought 2 demons who were sent after him. One of the demons was eventually tricked into mentioning Muzan's name, which resulted in a gruesome death as arms grew out of her body and left her helpless to the sunlight. After parting ways with Tamayo, he set out on his next mission where he encountered his first friend, Zenitsu. Zenitsu was found begging an engaged girl to marry him as he could die at any time. Bell didn't know what to think of that, but when he turned to said blonde man, he looked away, ashamed. Tanjiro then resumed, stating he dragged away Zenitsu only to end up running into a demon's house in the middle of a forest. Just outside of the house, there was a group of children, cowering. They told me that their brother had been captured by a demon. They followed the traces of blood and, eventually, arrived at the house. Just then a body came flying out of the top floor of the house. As demon slayers, it was our duty to fight the demons and rescue the people, so we entered the house. While Tanjiro recounted his story to Bell, the girls sat at a different table away from the boys and the familiars. This group consisted of Elise, Kagaya, Tsubaki, Artoria, Ryu, Akagi, Shinano, as well as Musasha, saying she was there to protect Shinano from Elise. What did you want to talk about, Kagaya? Normally it's me who organizes these meetings. Well, I heard you say that you invited Rose to join our little polygamy and you want to bring certain other people in, like Estrella and Shinano. Wait, what? Ryu, being the innocent and pure person she was, didn't expect to hear that Elise was aiming to get Estrella to join. That's right, and you could join as well, Lion. If you were just a little more honest. I mean, you pretty much confessed at the tournament. Why not just go up to Bell, confess, and then kiss him? It's just that simple. Ryu went silent hearing that, too embarrassed to say anything. She enjoyed the idea more than anything and she would love to date Bell, but something in her stopped her from going through with her desire. Anyways, some of the things I wanted to talk about was who else we wanted to include and how many exactly are you planning to bring into our polygamy? That turned all the attention to Elise, who stopped to think for a while. Well, I don't really know. Besides Rose and the girls you mentioned, I was thinking of including RD. I'm also interested in the girls from the Baphomet familia as well, see if there is anyone who will join. But as to how many I intend to include, why put a limit? I say, we just invite as many as we can. I guess. Akagi's ears perked up as an idea suddenly entered her mind. Oh, I know. Why not get Yamato, Kaga, and Amagi to join? Then all that we have to do is get Musasha to join and Bell will have the whole set, well, minus Akari, for obvious reasons. The looks of shock on Shinano and Misashi's face told tales of the absurdity of the idea. Are you crazy, Akagi? Inviting our sisters to a polygamy is crazy, but inviting Yamato, Kaga, and Amagi might not be against it if they do fall in love with him. As for me, I don't see Bell like that, but that is without even talking about Yamato. She'd go crazy if she heard of this. It will probably already take us begging her to get her to accept that you all Fell in love. With the same guy, but make her join us. That is absolutely out of the question. The other girls, however, were left confused at that. Speaking of which, who is this? Yamato. Oda Yamato. The second eldest of us 7 sisters. There's 7 of you. The purple-haired girl nodded. Yes, from oldest to youngest. There is Amaji, Yamato, me, Akagi, Kaga, Shinano, and Akari. How old are you all exactly? Going in order, it would be 26, 22, 17, 16, 16, 14, and finally Akari, who is 5, 6 this year. So what is the issue with Yamato? Shinano sighed, her face showing a tired and desperate expression. Put simply, our elder sister hates men. Oh great. Why? Well, to simplify the story, Wani-chan is a young but prodigious general, and she leads one of the largest armies during periods of wars. Amidst our fight against the Akechi clan, a clan that betrayed Amaterasu-sama, one of her most trusted commanders attempted to capture her, which would have led to an even worse fate than being assassinated. Worse fate? Yes, she could have been captured, and then instead of being killed they could have tortured her, raped her, or forced her to a life of imprisonment, slavery, or who knows what other options there were. Forced into being a concubine or a prostitute. There are many grim fates that await people in the Far East. Amaterasu is doing her best to unite all of the Far East, but it is a vast land with hundreds of clans, and only about half of them have swore their allegiance to the Oda clan, or our allies. Until all clans are united, there will not be a single unified empire. Why did the commander betray her? Because they defected to the enemy clan under the promise of fame, money, women, and glory. Luckily, she discovered this, and he was stopped before he could try anything. But since then she has come to see all men as plague. All officers and members in her army are now women because of that. The first all-female army. She hates them with a passion and is extremely harsh when she comes across one. She has even distanced herself from our father and Yorichi, who used to be her mentor, as she is a user of the sun-breathing style. If she discovers our relationship with Bell, she might set out on a crusade to deal with him. Elise blinked when Shinano finished the story. It was a tragic story, and she felt sorry for her. But hearing how she reacted to Mean, Elise knew she would troublesome. She wasn't confident as to what to do with her, nor did the other Renards, well except Akagi. May it'll be fine. Bell is the best shot we have to cure our sister of her phobia, and he knows how to work his charm to seduce even the toughest of women. If anyone can do it, it will be Bell. With a hum, Elise nodded. I mean, you're not wrong, I guess. But what's the chance he meets the pointy end of a sword? Pretty high. The girls were left pondering until Elise shrugged her shoulders. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. More importantly, there is something else I'd like to direct your attention to. Using the Hinakami Kagura, I managed to cut the demon's neck while Inosuke defended me from his attacks. That's how me and Inosuke managed to defeat Enmu, and along Nezuko, Zenitsu, and Rengoku-san saved the passengers in the train. Bell was entranced with the amazing story that Tanjiro had been telling him about. It was filled with terrifying events, like when Zenitsu nearly got turned into a spider, or the blood chilling and enraging moments like when someone tried to take Nezuko away from her brother. He could only imagine how much the red-haired boy had went through. But what followed was probably the scariest moment to this day. What happened? Answering him, however, wasn't Tanjiro but Akaza. Allow me to tell him, Tanjiro. This next part is much to my shame, my fault. Bell nodded and attentively listened. After the train derailed as a result of Enmu's defeat, another demon appeared. And that demon was me. The information caused Bell's brain to stop for a moment as it registered and processed it. Hey, you were a demon. Yes, I used to be Akaza, Upper Moon 3. I was there on Musen's order to kill Tanjiro, the boy with the Hanafuda earrings, as he was described to me, just before I could kill him. However, Kyojuro stepped in and defended him. I was not in my right mind at that time, and I ended up fighting Kyojuro. It was a long and exhilarating fight. I had never before met someone as strong as Kyojuro. When the fight ended, he nearly managed to cut my head, but was unfortunately a little too late, and I ended up piercing his solar plexus. The look of shock on Bell must have been something Akaza had seen commonly, as he showed no sign of turning away despite the clear shame he felt at the memory. He should have died that day. But this world we live in is blessed with magic, and magic can be really miraculous. As if to respond to his blazing passion, he developed a skill, which set him ablaze kind of like Elise. Its exact effects aren't really known yet, but it did allow him to survive long enough for a medic team to save him from the injury. Now, as you can see, he is back in top shape, but for months he was bedridden due to my foolishness. It's all right. The sudden voice shouting startled everyone, including Akaza, but sighed in relief when they saw that it was none other than the man himself, Rengoku Kyojuro. I'm in peak condition now, so no need to worry. Just as Tanjiro had said, the fiery-haired man was quite the weird individual, but he looked just as kind as described. That's when Bell's attention returned to the former demon, accompanied by a look of confusion. But if you were a demon, how come you are here as a member of the demon Slayers? Oh, that we still haven't gotten to. Tanjiro once again took control of the narration of his story. After the near death of Rengoku-san, me and the other two were brought back to Shinobu-san as we were badly injured after the fight. For the next months we recovered and trained ourselves until we were combat ready. But as soon as we completed the first mission, we ran into Yuzua-san, who was trying to take Aoi-san for a mission, only for the said Hashira to butt in and take part in the narration of the grand tale. That's right, the great Yuzui Tengen is here. Bell watched as a large man who looked to be nearly as big as Otta made his presence known. His arms were massive and incredibly muscular. He wore a sleeveless version of the Demon Slayer uniform with red stripes tightly wrapping around his feet that were covered by a pair of Zori, thick golden bands wrapped around his biceps and wrists. The man's features were similar to Bell's own, with white hair and fuchsia pink eyes. But, unlike Bell, he looked eccentric, loud and flashy, or perhaps flamboyant was the better word. The tattoo and the headband only reinforced that. But if there is one thing that stood